Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to GeekVerse episode 440. I am Vengeance Trasnail, and I'm joined by
the cat, Kirklin Patzer.
The Field of Fields, Taylor Field.
Field of Fields. I have to give you credit, Taylor. I did not think you were going to make a thumbnail, so I just, did you see the thumbnail I threw together like in 5 minutes?
I did.
We're not happy with that one, I imagine, but I was like, oh shit, I don't have time. Oh man, I almost shared the Batman trailer instead of our show to Twitter. That would have been good. Oh, watch us live. We're here. But yeah, we have a newscast right now. We have another one popping off this week. Taylor's going to join us for a little bit. Yeah, Taylor, where can they find us?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find us with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerse is our Twitter. GeekVerse on our Facebook. Be sure to check us out on our Facebook because the fan-based community Christmas poll is popping off. Kevin McAllister has officially lost. The Grinch has moved on to the final round. Squaring up right now, we got Tim Allen Santa Claus versus Jack Skellington.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. And everything we do is in the links down below. We'll talk about it another time, but you guys give us a huge week the past few weeks with Spider-Man and Matrix, and the other casts are doing well. So big thank you. We hope you had a good holidays with your family, your friends, or even if you're alone, you know, as long as you are watching some Christmas movies, that should get you through the season. That's a whole nother conversation.
Or here with us.
Yeah, or here with us, exactly. And the best way to support us is head over to Patreon down below because you get episodes ad-free, exclusive, early. Funny enough, talking about Batman today, Batman retrospective. So the very first retrospective we ever did, I had an idea 6 years ago. I was like, oh, leading up to BVS, I'm going to review Batman, all the movies with a guest, and I'm putting those back in the feeds because many times people ask, you guys ever review The Dark Knight? Well, it's going to be in the feeds. And I'm pretty sure the Dark Knight review has all the original 5. I'm pretty sure. I think that was one that we made sure. But yeah, so those are going to be fun. So I think there's like 9 of them. So literally you're going to get one every week, and that's going to lead you right to the Batman. So that's going to be tons of fun. And you can get those ad-free on Patreon. You can go pick a movie for us to review. Tons of good stuff there. And the more you support us, the more content you create. We've talked about in the past. There's going to be stuff later on, like the retros and other things we're going to be doing. Harry Potter retro will be coming out. We'll be doing the Jurassic World Park retro soon enough. So lots of good stuff popping off. I'm talking fast because we got lots to talk about today. We already did the Dexter episode 8 spoilers review. You can go check that out. But so Taylor Field, Kirklin, I don't know where this man goes sometimes because I'm like, oh, I'll see you for Boba. He's like, oh, don't we have a newscast? I'm like, well, we said it was going to be me and Kirklin, me on Wednesday. Oh, I thought I was there for here. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, oh, I can come for a little bit. So I don't know. Like, there's so many times where I feel like you half read stuff. Even then, you looked at something.
You never said it was a newscast though, because you're like Spidey, and I was like, what is this Spidey? I was telling Kirkland, like, what is this animated show review or something? Like, what are you guys talking about?
We're talking because there's just been like we already said after No Way Home we were gonna do like a future of Spider-Man cast because there was lots to talk about, and now there's been rumors galore of fucking Spider-Gwen and Black Cat and like all this stuff. So it's just like it's just been feeding us. And obviously it came to the Christmas weeks. It's like we can't do it then, but I still want to do it in the time frame where it's relevant because I thought about waiting to the new year, but then it's like, okay, we're getting the 3rd week of Spider-Man. There'll be other stuff to talk about. So that's where I'm gonna let you lead off because you're here for how long are you here for, sir?
Oh, till 8 o'clock.
Till 8 o'clock. So what do you want to talk about the most? And we're gonna go in that. Do you want to start with Batman or Spider-Man?
Ooh. I feel like Spider-Man. As long as I can sneak in some Batman talk, Spider-Man is the way to go.
I don't know if that's going to happen for you.
Because there's a lot of Spider-Man to talk about.
There's a lot of Spider-Man to talk about.
Well, I don't know. Kirkland,
okay.
What do you think?
Kirkland's here the whole
Bring
time.
me into this.
We're here all the time. Well, okay, this is what we'll do. If we, we're not by Batman, you can give your quick thoughts on Batman, and I can maybe edit them into the Batman portion when I cut it out and stuff like that. So let's start with Spider-Man. So let's pick off where we left off. Go and check out our review because you guys, one of our biggest reviews of all time. It's going to be our biggest review of the year, biggest day. Like, it's just a bunch of records we'll probably talk about in the bloopers. I'll maybe shout some stuff out. But a big thank you to checking that out because, as I've said before, there's probably hundreds now of podcasts that probably reviewed Spider-Man. And the fact that we got so many listens, the fact that we were charting was very good. And another thing that warms my heart is that we could put an episode and Marvel Alliance could put an episode, similar brands, all in the GeekVerse umbrella. They're charting as well. Their biggest episode, all hitting huge milestones. So it's a big thing. As Bob's on the West Coast, so I can watch at a reasonable time. Well, yeah, the only reason this is early is just because I'm off right now. Kirklin's off and stuff like that. So I thought, go do a little earlier for the fans. And I still got one more day off, as much as work tries to call me and say, hey, what you doing tomorrow? I didn't pick up. So Spider-Man last 2 weeks has been incredible. We didn't talk about the box office, but it was the second biggest opening weekend of all time. Not just behind it. First, it was like a few million behind Infinity War. It beat it, so it's like 100,000. Endgame's like 100 million more. So Endgame, huge record, hard to be passed, especially in a COVID pandemic world. But still, the fact that it got second in a pandemic is massive. This week it had like 84 million, so a really good drop. It's the third quickest film to hit to $1 billion. It already in like 4 days beat like the entire, like every movie that came out this year, it beat it and stuff like that. So it's doing fantastic. It hit $1 billion this weekend. So pretty much like it's performing the way a regular movie would have been. I don't think there's much to add on this, but do you guys have anything to add as far as, we talked about before how well it would do, but I think it's one of these things that it's even doing better than we all kind of thought it would, just especially with like how things are. And I think it's good to make its money now because things in Canada, like theaters are closing some places. In America, things are slowing down. Like even here, they're not closed, but they're slashed at 50%. So they're kind of good. They're lucky they came in that 2 weeks before cases started to rise and there's a new variant, because they got to like make all that money while they could. And now it might slow down. But do you guys have anything to say on, obviously, it's just a smash success. It's acting like it's not a pandemic, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that last thing you just said is what really blows my mind, because we've done predictions cast leading up to it, and I thought it was going to do really well, just like for the fact that they had a lot of hype next to it, but like that was with COVID expectations, and it completely surpassed non-COVID expectations, and that's phenomenal. It's so awesome. It's so great for everyone that was involved in the film, and also just us as fans. It's always nice to see a Spidey product do really well in that sense. So that was really, really cool. And just the numbers wise, like I think I was almost in disbelief when I originally saw it. And like you just mentioned, it just hit $1 billion now. Like I didn't think that was possible in the COVID era. Like our theater, or I guess I didn't see it with you guys, but like my theater, it was pretty packed, but still it's got that 50% capacity, right? So like it's not as packed as what Endgame was when I saw that. That was completely sold out pretty much, I think. So like just seeing the numbers translate to what I saw, like personally, a lot of people at the theater, but it wasn't packed out. But I haven't gone again, so I don't know how packed the theater was, second goings, but it's clearly it's been doing really well, and that's really, really crazy. Just I didn't think we're going to be seeing that in the COVID era, honestly, and we have now, so it's really cool.
Well, and how to me, I was knowing, so when I saw it the second time, it was the Saturday after the Thursday, and me and my sister, I took her out for dinner because it was birthday, went to Bin 4, great, $11 burger, so really good.
I still got to try that. I've heard the burgers are
it's a good place, and the fries, it's a good place. So anyway, and go after 9, because the burgers are $11, so
nice.
They're like
Good
gourmet burgers. So then I got eggnog cheesecake. That was a delight. Yeah, it was a nice night out. But anyway, so did that, and here's the two things I knew. And people are going to play this clip of me in the past being like, oh, well, they should have showed Tobey and Andrew. They would have made more money. Now, do I still believe that? Yes. It probably is a very small amount, because I never thought it was going to do like this well. But how I knew is our waitress asked, like, oh, what are your plans for us tonight? So we're going to go see Spider-Man. And she's like, oh, yeah, all my friends have seen it. My best friend says it's the best Marvel movie yet. When you get to that point where random people you bump into are talking about it and they've had other people, that's where it's like, oh shit, like that's when it starts to get big. And because the kids and her birthday, and because she worked, we went to a 10:30 p.m. showing. It wasn't packed, but it was a healthy amount of people. It was like 10:30 on a Saturday, and I know there's still stuff closed and COVID, but still, it's like that thing of like, oh no, this is big. Like there's so many people talking about, but then also just seeing it at that late and the theater being pretty full, I was like, okay, they got magic right now, and they really do. It's been the talk ever since that movie come out. It's still the talk of Hollywood right now. So Taylor, how are you thinking about its success going on right now?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's extremely well deserved, well earned. I mean, it's breaking records. It's the Field sweater. Shout out to Maddie and
Maddie Sags in the
first
chat.
$1 billion movie in 2 years since the Rise of Skywalker.
I think that speaks volumes. I think it really does. It also goes to show the power of two companies working together and bring both their IPs that they've created into one medium. It's incredible. Like if Sony tried to do this on their own, I don't know if it would have hit $1 billion. I mean, it probably would have done well, but Well, it's an interesting question, actually. If you have Sony, like, let's say they don't have Tom Holland, they never did those Spider-Man movies with the MCU, but they bring in Andrew's Spider-Man, they bring in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, bring it
We
into
can
the
say this in
Morbius
public
Venom
now,
realm.
too.
We can, yeah. They bring it into the realm of like, okay, Tom Hardy's Venom and Morbius film and all that stuff. I don't see it having the same effect because it's not connected into the MCU. I think just being a label that's attached to the MCU's franchise adds like at least $700,000 to your payout, at the box
Wow,
office.
almost $1 million. That's
I
impressive.
feel like it's huge.
I think it's a little
Realistically, maybe
more.
like $300,000. You think it's more?
$300,000, Taylor?
Or sorry, 300 million. Sorry,
Yeah, I knew, like, when you're like
300,000.
Wow, good pitch, Foggy. We can bring you in $700,000 more. Think about it. Give us 15% of your profits. But that question you asked, Taylor, like, could this hit $1 billion without MCU? Both companies are asking themselves that, and especially because right now we got Spider-Man has one more deal, right? So we'll see Holland and one more MCU movie, and then it's done. Who knows? I would love it if they announced some sort of deal beforehand, but let's say they got to wait till that, and then they'll figure it out. And all these people saying, "Oh, we're working on it," but still not done yet, right? I think it is going to happen, but I guarantee you they want to wait till after this box office, and I guarantee you Sony's having that conversation of, could we have hit this without them? And I think it's tough because you're right, where I think the MCU is like a stamp of quality. It's like if you go to a restaurant and you see a bunch of awards like best year, you go, oh, okay, lots of people like them. They enjoy their food. But the thing is, when you have the dish that everyone's talking about, and if you were to play this back, and let's say that they broke up in whatever 2019 after Endgame, and let's say we were all bummed, like, oh, he's on the MCU anymore, blah blah blah. But they're like, hey, but we're gonna bring Tobey back, we're gonna bring Andrew back, we're gonna bring all these villains back. I think it probably could have hit $1 billion, but the thing that helps it, which I think is Feige and the team, is could the movie have been as good as this quality-wise? That's what could have hurt it, because it could have just been, oh yeah, fun nostalgia. But if I would have saw it and fun nostalgia, but not liked it, I wouldn't have gone and seen it a second time with my sister. So I think it is legitimately both of them, where Sony has the goods. They got the Defoes, the Alfred Molina, stuff like that. MCU has the, you can trust us. We've made really good movies before. So I think both of them. But I still think there's a world where Sony could release this movie and it could have been $1 billion. I do. Just of how many, because it was hype seeing Doc Ock back and Defoe back. And who knows, maybe without Disney, maybe they would have showed off the Spider-Man. But I think it would have made $1 billion. But it's like, again, it's quality, because who knows if it would have been this good. So anything else to say in the box office? Well, only thing I'll shout out, as we kind of talk about, Matrix not doing too well. It made like $22 million this week and stuff like that. So
what about the HBO Max numbers? Is that included?
Not out yet. So we'll see. So I hope it did well. It's like I was talking about in Dexter. It has like a divisive tag on it, and I've thought about listening. And I might listen to some reviews in the future, but I don't really care why it's divisive. I guess it's just one of those movies I watch and I go, like I said, I enjoy it, but I also just go like, I don't know what would be so divisive about it. I could see some stuff not liking, but some people just hate it. But yeah, we'll see. I think that franchise is probably over now, but I don't think we're surprised. Spider-Man, Christmas, HBO, a lot of things working against it, and I think that's why Warner Brothers said, yeah, we're not doing that next year. We're not doing that with the Batman, because I think it was a smart idea to do the HBO Max thing, but I think a year was too much. They should have done 6 months and waited, because I think they're probably kicking themselves a little bit seeing a lot of these movies like Venom or Shang-Chi and like Spider-Man doing well and being like, oh man, we just had them all on HBO Max. So we'll see. If it were up to Sony, they would have had Tobey getting stabbed in the first trailer. Fuck, that would have been brutal. But so speaking of Tobey, now this is something I remember I had a conversation about probably 3 weeks before the release of the movie, and I hate bringing him up because sometimes he's scum of the earth. But Fanboy Clay, we were talking about like if they show Tobey and Andrew whatnot, and eventually I was always kind of like, I don't get why they wouldn't show him, and then the light bulb went off, and I feel smart for this at least because I feel like it's tracking what's happening. I said the reason they're not going to show him now is because you get the big reveal, and then when you get to show him is sequels and follow-ups, and when they bring these back after, because the cat's out of the bag, right? Now the next time, if you for some reason missed it, they could preview it. And we've heard some rumblings and whatnot, but I want to start with Tobey. Do you see, Taylor Field, Tobey Maguire suited up again in anything? And then I'll ask for more specific after, but anything, do you see him live action suited up again as Spider-Man?
A part of me says that we do. I genuinely think we do. I believe that he was brought in with enough of an opening at the same time of his exit in No Way Home that we could see him coming out of the wherever the portal in his own dimension or whatever, and he's injured and stabbed, and I feel like they could pick up right with that and offer like a concluding story to his arc, because no matter what, like Spider-Man 3 in Tobey's trilogy, like it concluded it to a degree. Like it's just still a little rocky, but it's not like the most greatest conclusion of his story, because they went in thinking, hey, we're going to do a fourth one, right? So now you have this, which is like sort of like a Spider-Man 4, where it continues his story at least a little bit, where we get to know a little bit of the details of what he's up to. But I think there's a high chance that Sony sees the success of this, and it doesn't have to be MCU related, even though it all is now. All those movies are MCU canon now. But this new movie with Tobey could easily just be its own thing, and just, I mean, Kirsten Dunst wanted to come back, right? That was the whole thing, but she just wasn't able to. So
yeah, her and Stone, apparently because of like COVID and restrictions, they couldn't do it. So.
Yeah, then I think you have the groundwork there. You can bring her back as Mary Jane. You don't have to worry about James Franco because he's dead and he's in court. So they can just go off and do whatever else they need to focus on with, you know, a new villain, or, you know, a kid, or maybe that's where they somehow throw in Miles Morales. Maybe they don't want to give up Miles Morales to the MCU, but they want to introduce him in their own Sony-verse of films. And that's where you do it. You do it with Tobey passing the torch in his universe, right? So
I'll make Kirklin Switzerland. I think 100% that Tobey, or Poland, whoever you want to be. I think Tobey and Andrew as well. I think they're Sony. We've talked about this before with some of these spinoffs they announced and everything like that. They want to use this property just for money. And after they see this, how can you not see the success in just almost a week, or it's under a week, of making $1 billion at the box office? Something that hadn't been done in 2 years. And this year, it had the second biggest opening of all time in a pandemic where people had limited options. Some people couldn't see it. Those are crazy ass numbers. And I think Tobey knows it. Tobey's going to look at that fucking box office and they're like, oh, you want to do this again? And apparently some scoopers came out and said like he was the toughest to get because just money-wise and stuff, which makes sense. I feel like he would hold it out. And some people might go like, oh, like, is he worth it? I do think he is. The same way Downey would sometimes get like $50 million a film. It's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, he's worth it. He's going to put butts in seats. And I think you will see Tobey again. I'm less confident on Taylor's prediction as far as like a whole movie. I think that's a lot to ask. I feel like, and that's been the great thing now with all these interviews, Holland said like all of them had a fun time, but he said like Tobey had a fun time getting back in the suit and just felt like very nostalgic and stuff. I think the amount that he did in No Way Home, I think that would be like the perfect amount, maybe like a little bit more that he would want to keep it on. I think you could still do, whether it's another Spider-Man movie, a Spider-Verse movie, whatever it may be, a crossover, an MCU Secret Wars. I think you could still give us more context and history in Tobey's world by going to it in a movie and showing Kirsten Dunst and stuff like that. I don't think you need the full movie. Unless I pitched this, I think, a year ago. Like I said, yeah, I think Miles would be great. I don't think you have to kill off Tobey to bring in Miles. I know that's kind of always the story, but you could find a way where maybe he's just injured and out of it for a bit and he's just the trainer. I think we will see Tobey again. I think maybe less than Andrew, and they might hold off on it, but I think it's just one of those that's just a pure money thing from both of them. Tobey, I think no matter what, like, if he, like, gets the paycheck, sure, he'll put those tights on again, and I think Sony knows it's just kind of like, the people clearly have nostalgia for these movies, and if they're done right, people want to see these characters again. And instead of Sony, which we're going to talk about later, instead of them spinning off fucking Morbius or Jackpot and all this shit, do what people, you already know people like Tobey. You already know people like Andrew and Emma, which we're going to talk about. So, Kirkland, do we see Tobey again? And if we do you think it would be in a cameo sense, crossover kind of like the Hulk, or do you think there is a chance we can get a Spider-Man 4?
I mean, the Spider-Man 4 is so just beautiful, right? You know, like I see that, I'm like, oh, I want that. I want that on my mantle. I wanna just have that in existence. I feel like the safer bet would be the cameo route, maybe something like the Hulk, some minor appearances. And I love Tobey. I want him in everything, but maybe run the risk of diluting like that nostalgia power, like okay, like seeing him on screen, I was like in tears. I'm like, this is like the most beautiful moment of my life. And then like if I just get that for every movie going forward, it definitely will lose some of the magic, and I think I'll still enjoy having him on screen, but it's like, okay, this is just Tobey. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I feel like the magic would just be diluted. Yeah. So I think if we use them selectively, it could be great. I love what you're mentioning with Miles. I think he's the best Spider-Man choice to pair him up with Miles. Tom Holland could be fun, but he's just too young. I can't see him as being like a father-like figure that maybe Peter Parker would be to Miles Morales. So I would definitely pick Tobey there. Andrew, I feel like that's a safer bet to having him in possibly a fuller length thing. Maybe it's a series, maybe it's a movie, something along those lines. Just because, I mean, I'm not even like deep in on those Twitter conversations, but even I've seen them. Like, it's hard to just ignore that everyone being like, "Oh, yes. Andrew's willing to come back," and just all these rumors of like, "Oh, Andrew's coming
people
back."
Hyped,
yeah, no, people are hyped, absolutely,
and it's naturally hyped. It's not like this form. It's like people like Sony has a product and people want it, and that's the best position to be in as a company,
Absolutely, and like a lot of people think that Andrew is the best part about that movie. I would disagree there, but I understand what they're like, where they're coming from, because he was special. I'm coming
What's
from
the best
someone.
part of the movie, Kirklin? I don't know if we talk about the movie.
Willem Dafoe, probably.
Okay, no, I probably wouldn't fight you on that. Like,
Yeah.
he's so fucking good at that
And
movie.
the three Spider-Men together. So Andrew is a part of that, but no, he's not the solid standout that I feel like a lot of people I'm seeing on Twitter are saying, like, no, Andrew was the golden boy of the movie. And I understand where they're coming from, because he was special, and I was even someone that loved The Amazing Spider-Man. I didn't even see The Amazing Spider-Man 2 until like shortly before the movie even came out. I thought they're okay, but I just didn't really jive with his Spider-Man. But after seeing it, it's like, holy shit, okay, no, he was special. And I was one of those people that I can proudly admit I was wrong in that sense, that he actually is a really good Spider-Man. He's a really good Peter Parker, and it was really fun having him on screen. Really, really good emotional moments. This is kind of turning into a mini Spider-Man review, but
that's gonna be next year. Every movie like, it's not as good as Spider-Man.
No, but I just getting back to the question at hand, because I'm kind of deviating, is I think Tobey would be the more select features. Tom is obviously just signed on for the rest of his life. He's going to be having like a Sony tattoo if he doesn't already. Yeah. And then Andrew would be the next one under that, and Tobey would be the more select, like I just said. So
yeah, and I feel like Tobey, like, again, I feel like it'd be lesser, but if you look at Downey's like MCU career near the end of it, he was just more of a supporting character guy, right? Like Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, he had like a much bigger role, but Tony just started to become like, oh, he's a big character, but he's not the main guy right now, right? And I feel like Tobey, you could do that. And I feel like just because they didn't do the Mary Jane stuff, there is still content. If they would have answered that all, I would have been like, okay, what else could we do? But it's the funny thing, because we'll take an ad break in a second, because Maddie asked a very dangerous question that very scares me. So save that. But with Andrew, it's so funny because I think Chris Balga put it the best way. Because I can't remember, because we got a Marvel Alliance chat, the GOATs. Brent is Michael Jordan. Chris is Michael Jordan, Brent is Scottie Pippen, and I'm Dennis Rodman of the Chicago Bulls '98. That's what we call ourselves, the GOA. So we were talking.
He took Scottie Pippen, Brent?
No, I gave him that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say.
I had to give myself Rodman because I can't. That just makes
you are
sense.
the Rodman. Yeah.
As I'm wearing, like, look at Maddie talks about Taylor's hoodie. Like, look at this one, Maddie. Let me zip it all the way up. This fucking hood. I'm not saying it looks good, but it looks stylish at least. But when I zip it all up. Look at that. This is what we'll do here. I look like I'm a fucking Bond villain. Or I'm like Yelena from Hawkeye in that episode where she had the Clint Barton. But anyway, so they asked me, like, well, who's your favorite Spider-Man? And it's tough because I've always said that, like, I got the nostalgia, and I'd probably say Tobey, right? But that's not, like, the best Spider-Man, because I've always said I think Holland is, because I think he does Parker and Spider-Man the best. But then I said, but then after No Way Home, I don't know, because for some reason I had felt like it's almost like in a movie where I just watched Snow Day. Taylor, I feel like you gotta love Snow Day, right?
Snow Day. Let's give it
you have to see him. But anyway, so there's this plot where this guy, he's after this girl Claire the whole movie, and he has this girl best friend that he clearly doesn't see, loves, and they should be together. That's how I kind of felt with Andrew. Like, have the whole time I've been looking over him, and he really was the one, and I was looking at these all other shiny things. And Chris put the best way, like, I think the reason you feel that way, or I'm paraphrasing what he says, just like, it's good to see him in a movie with good writing. It's like, and when I made the equation too, it's like, there's a player could be a Hall of Fame all-star player, but he doesn't have the right coach. And this is what it felt like for the first time. If Andrew has the right coach, he's in the right environment. It's like, man, what could he do with all this good stuff? Now we're gonna talk about Andrew because like people's solution of like pair him with Venom. I don't know if that's the right coaching move. That's not what I really like. That's what I worry about. But let's take an ad break and we're gonna start talking about Andrew and his chances of coming back. So we will be right back. And we're back. So did you see Snow Day, Taylor?
The poster is something else, but I've
It
never
just
seen
feels
the
like a
movie.
Sky High movie you would have liked or something like
It
that.
looks
you know?
like Sky High vibes, yeah.
At least you're not the Dennis Rodman of today. Yeah, that's a little too far. Go back to 98. Let's do that. So we'll start talking about Andrew right now, but here is a great transition into a few things. Matty Sags, Patreon, and he's going to have a Patreon question later, asks, would you choose Amazing Spider-Man 3, but no Spider-Gwen, or fourth Tobey film? That's for me. It's difficult and it's tough because I would save the Spider-Gwen stuff to talk about later. But it's so tough without knowing a writer or director because I feel like I don't need Spider-Gwen and the Amazing Spider-Man 3. I think there's material to do there. So I lean a bit more to Amazing Spider-Man 3 because I think there's more meat on the bone, especially when they talk about No Way Home. He had a little bit of a darker past. He was getting bitter and stuff. So I lean a bit that way, but the Tobey one is like that's super tough not to take. So like if you I don't know. I don't know. Like what do you guys have an answer on that one?
Tobey. That's
Tobey?
an easy one
Whoa.
for me. Yeah.
Okay, so put in Spider-Gwen or Emma Stone coming back. How do you feel about that question now?
Yeah, Tobey.
Oh.
She's great, but I mean, I feel like there's just more opportunity for good memes out of the Tobey films, which could degrade the film, but you
Just
know,
looking for
years
memes.
later could be something great that we have.
What about you, Taylor Field?
So if we get Amazing Spider-Man 3, we don't get Spider-Gwen out of that. I think that's enough to answer the question right there. To me, I can look at No Way Home, and I can honestly view that as my Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 3, just having Andrew Garfield on that. Now, I think a fourth Tobey film is much more enticing, in my opinion. Like, I see the polls of people online, everyone's ranting and raving about the fact, like, hey, like, we want him, like, to get his third movie, finish the trilogy off. Every Spider-Man needs a trilogy. Sure, I totally support that, but my kind of linear path forward would be, let's get a fourth Tobey film. Let's take advantage of that while we can. Kind of wrap up that story. Give us Spider-Gwen. And I just feel like there's more potential with all that than there would be with an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Because, like, what would they do? They would have us go back to his world and he would face off against that alien that they would be pulling from, I guess, that they set up. Like, I just don't know if there's much juice there. Again, he's right back in the same boat with Sony, like, as them leading the charge with him. Whereas if he had that, like you mentioned, had the helping hand or like a connection with the MCU, and the MCU is kind of driving that and spearheading that, then I would totally be more on board in that sense. But if it's a Sony-led film, then I think between the two Spider-Men, the Tobey one would be much more the route to go. So,
well, I think the reason, excuse me, Andrew has the juice is just because, yeah, he had, excuse me, I'm back into
Get it out. Get it out.
It's one of those things where, yeah, he didn't get his third one, so people are like, oh, man, that is a big bummer. I don't know how much, like I said, I don't know if Tobey really wants to do a full 6-8 months of being Spider-Man and stuff like that again. But again, I think if the paycheck's there, he actually legitimately would do it. And I think the juice is there for Andrew just because it is great to see him in the MCU type of stuff. And it is funny that, like, in all the interviews, he's always like, oh, yeah, and Feige, he's great. Like, he talks about Feige all the time. And it's interesting because, yeah, I think Tobey, like, but here's the counter, though. You could easily do Miles Morales with Andrew. Andrew's old enough now. He's 38. Like, you could easily do that story of him teaching. Like, he had that experience with Tom Holland. Bring him on. Like, okay, well, I'm going to teach this Spider-Man, stuff like that. I think, because we'll talk about the Spider-Gwen thing in a second, because that is something that just gets the juices flowing beyond belief. I think that, Taylor, you have a good pitch. That's always wonder, like, okay, what more is there to do for Andrew Garfield? I think the Spider-Gwen thing is one thing, but let's save that. I know, and I know Brent's listening to this. I know he completely disagrees, and we talk about it all the time on Twitter. to me, and I do not mean to offend anybody, the answer is not Venom. You could put him in that universe, but I don't think that is the answer, because I feel like majority of people that love Venom, and I could be wrong, but they always say it with like a evil smile, like, oh yeah, I like Venom. Like, I don't know if I've met someone that genuinely like really loves Venom, and it's all different strokes for different folks, right? We did our, like, in our Discord, the GV1, people were dropping their MCU rankings, and some people had Eternals in their top 5, and the other half had them in the bottom 5. Some people number 1, some people like myself like last, right? So I guarantee, yeah, there's people that do love Venom, and I can't deny, as the business guy, those movies make so much money. Like Venom 2 had the second biggest opening of the year, you know? So it's the thing of like, Sony, if they're wanting money, they're not dumb, because like, oh well, Andrew was in $1 billion movie, Venom's doing great, put them together. Taylor Phil, GeekVerse podcast.
So they have obviously Venom 1, Venom 2. Now here's the interesting thing: do they get bold enough to do, okay, the next Tom Holland movie we got, he's squaring off against Venom. Now in Venom 3, he's squaring off against Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
No,
do they
I
do
think
it at
they
the
do one
same
or the
time?
other.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's obviously going to be Tom Holland because they set it up for that. That's why again, I don't. No,
I think it's the other way.
Really?
Okay,
with the post credits set up?
Okay, here I guess I think I see where you're confused. There's Venom and there's Eddie Brock. I think Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy is not going to be involved with Holland because of what happened, right? Mm-hmm. I think you could have the symbiote attached to someone else, black suit symbiote, you know, he's bad and stuff like that. I think Tom Hardy's version of Venom has a very likely chance. I think Brent's right that it's likely of fighting Andrew Garfield, because maybe that's the way they justify getting him back is, okay, his Amazing Spider-Man movies didn't do the greatest, but they did well enough. People really loving him. What if we merge that with Venom? They give Venom a Spider-Man. They get Andrew back. I think the movie would do really well. People love Venom. Like I said, Venom is the comic book version of Transformers now. People it's hidden their juices and they like it. I can't deny it, so they're not going to stop making it. I can't wait to see what happens with Morbius in January, because I feel like if that falls on its face, even more so, they'll be like, yeah, get Andrew, get Emma, get Tobey. Like, they're going to be like, let's get the stuff that works. But what do you, Kirklin? Do you feel that with Andrew... Oh, sorry. I want to make one point because Taylor put his hand up. He interrupted me, the bastard. But what I want to happen is when January comes out, Morbius comes out, I want to at least like the movie. I want the movie to be like a 7 out of 10, because then I could feel, okay, I could be excited about Andrew coming back. I'm excited about him coming back. I just kind of like what Taylor's talking about. I worry about the team around him. I had no fucking problems with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone in the first two. Those two are great. Arguably the greatest romantic... I don't think it's argued. I think they are the greatest romantic comic book chemistry of all time. Makes sense. They were dating and stuff like that. There's great things in that movie, but they're just all around this, like you know, just a mess of stuff. So that's my worry of like, yeah, if we get Andrew back and we just put him in the Sony Venomverse, is there just going to be more of that? Is it going to be my boy Andrew, who's great in a bunch of bad movies? I don't want that. I want some respect on his name. I want like Sony to take this really seriously. And I feel like enough people at Sony know, like, we're getting away with these Venom movies. Like, we're stealing ones, right? Like, people don't pick up, like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they wouldn't care. They'll just look at money, and I get it. But my hope is that's why even I think people that like Venom would still go, I hope Andrew would get the quality that he did in MCU, because Venom is not MCU quality. So that's my worry of like, sure, it makes sense money-wise, but if you put him in Venom, I feel like that's just, you get him right back where, oh, Andrew's great, but he's in crap movies, and we don't get him again. And it's just like, I don't think that's what he deserves if he returns to the role full-time. Kirk and Patzer.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know what your original question was, but just speaking to what you just said.
Where do we see Andrew next? That was what started. Like, we talked about Tobey, Andrew, solo film, spin-offs, crossovers, Venom.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think where, like, for someone that, I can't even remember what my initial, like, reactions were to seeing Andrew Spider-Man, like the first time I saw them. I feel like maybe I left the theater and was like, well, that's not Tobey. That's not my Spider-Man. I'm not loving this guy. So I never really was too hot with him. But yeah, like, so the previous film kind of saved that for me. Because I don't have a lot of nostalgia for him, I don't want to say like I don't really care where he's going to be. But I think a safe thing to say is kind of what you were saying. Like, I want him back, and I want the writing to be well with his character, because I think it was shown just in the previous, like in Spider-Man that we just watched, like just the few dialogue lines that he had, whether he was talking about the passing of Gwen, what he could have done there, like just talking about his Uncle Ben, like just a lot of those emotional beats were just so like they're handled so well. And I would argue the same thing with his comedy stuff. His comedy stuff was probably even better. Like all of the dialogue with him, which it's not
Shakespeare.
gosh, it's not what I was gonna say. Not off the top. What's it called? Improv. There you go. That's the word I was gonna say. It's not improv. Like that. All that's writing, and he delivered those lines that was written for him really well. So I would hope that whatever we get him in, the writing would be on par. I'm always hoping for better, but at least on par to what that is. Now, if we get him in the Venomverse. Travis, you're hinting to how you felt about. You probably weren't even hinting. You're blatantly saying what you think about the Venomverse. I'm probably similar in your category. I don't not like the comedy that's shown in Venom. I am someone that
Andrew with those lines. Oh no.
I think I still like. It's funny what you mentioned, how like Venom they just lucked out on, because it doesn't matter what the fuck they write, people are gonna see that movie and it's gonna be probably $1 billion movie because it's just Venom on screen kicking ass, and like that is enough for me to kind of give it a pass because I just like seeing Venom on screen. Maybe like 6 movies down the line, it's like okay, no, I'm this boat's gone. But at least for now, they really lucked out on there, and I hope they don't just look at that with Andrew, because it's just so positively received. It's so well received, just him being back. They're like, hey, it doesn't matter what the fuck he says, it's just him on screen is gonna sell. That's not the case. It's so different when you have someone like Venom that people have been wanting for decades, longer than that, like for their whole lives, to see a good live action version of that character. We've already seen a good version of Andrew. It's not like we're itching for that. So they need more, and I hope they realize that, because that'd be. Could you imagine if like Andrew's so well received, and then the first thing we get him in, it's like literally just, holy shit, this is like a 20% Rotten Tomatoes audience score, something similar. Like this is just rough to get through. I would feel so bad for Andrew. I would feel so bad for him. He was out of it.
That would be the buzz kill of like, oh, he came off hype No Way Home, everyone's really excited, and then to me, just even the announcement of, oh, he's in Venom 3. There'd be it'd be an exciting conversation, but like the actual realization of like, man, he's just gonna be in these Sony movies, like, and that's the problem. Like, he would be in the Sony movies. I think probably we can all agree on that. I feel like they're at least gonna run the Spider-Verse movie back at some point, whether it is a Holland sequel or he goes back in the multiverse, or they literally do a live action Spider-Verse movie. I think that's a given. I think that's why I'm confident saying you'll see at least Tobey and Andrew one more time, because this is money, and they know, again, it's just that chemistry. I've seen all those 3 guys together. They know doing that again, people want that. People, like, I compared first Avengers. Once you saw that movie, like, I need these people again in the same room in a movie, please, as soon as possible. It's the same as this. So as Pub says, I like Venom 2, but it's my lowest ranked movie of the year. And that's what I kind of mean. Is I feel like people, even if they like it, they would go, oh, would they want Andrew in that? Fanboy Clay says, Amazing Spider-Man 3 all the way. Toby's 4th would be a goodbye for the character, and he'd die and whatnot. Amazing Spider-Man could open the door to give Andrew Garfield more. He could die. You never know. Give Feige full control and watch the box office explode, as Bub says. Well, absolutely. I that's what I'm really hoping for is, if we're going to do this MCU Sony deal, that they just announce some huge, big deal overall where we're going to start helping with all these films and whatnot. So this is where I want to get into, because this is some juice going on right now. So I always wondered, I was like, okay, same thing with Andrew. What do you do, right? Because it's just, he left. He was still Spider-Man. We got our closure in here, and that was always my thing of like, I did see more of Tobey. I saw more with Holland, and with Andrew, it was like, oh, I only see him in the Sonyverse, and I don't really want him with Venom and stuff like that. But to me, and it's funny because just all the stuff that's happening, I always thought after, especially No Way Home, was like, okay, well, the answer is Gwen, because people go, oh, well, she's dead, but she is as important to those movies as he was. So doing a third, I feel like in a sense you have to all like bring her back. And of course there's like, oh, you bring her back alive, this is a clone conspiracy. But now years later you look at the popularity of Spider-Gwen and how that's popped off with Spider-Verse and things like that. And I'm biased. I'm a big lover of the Gwen Stacy character. My daughter's named after her, so that shows the bias right there. But there's this great artwork. I don't know who did it. If the chat knows, some guy did an artwork of Andrew Garfield Spider-Man with Emma Stone as Spider-Gwen, and now there was one scooper that put this out, and then a person that also backed them up, and there's a few other people that said this, but there's still, I'd say, like, C, like, C tier around there, but still lots of C tier. The person that put out this new report is a person that got a whole bunch of stuff about No Way Home, right? So they could be somebody in the know around Sony. They said that Sony is actively trying to develop a project with Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, and there's nothing more as far as spin-off, crossover, and whatnot. And you talk about, again, Maddie said that question of like, no Gwen Stacy. I think if you were to announce you're doing Spider-Man 3, and whether it's Spider-Man or Spider-Verse, and you're doing Spider-Man 3, Andrew Garfield's coming back, or Amazing Spider-Man 3, and they have Emma Stone returning as Gwen Stacy's going to be Spider-Gwen, I think that is another one of those, man, the box office is going to run wild. Because Emma Stone's only a bigger star than she was a few years ago. And I hate to say it, but the morbid curiosity of these people that were dating at the time, and people just love them as a couple, have now been separated and they're back together. There's just so much at play that would make that rampant. And I also just think that it makes story sense. His whole arc in No Way Home was still about Gwen. So the fact of like introducing Spider-Gwen or Emma Stone, whatever it may be, not Emma Stone, he meets the actress. Hey, you look just like, but like introducing her, I think that does give some warrant of like what you could do with a story with him. And I've said this to these guys, I've said this to Clay, but I've pitched a trailer for the GA people that wouldn't know. Imagine Amazing Spider-Man 3 trailer, he's doing all the stuff he's doing in Spider-Man, or Spider-Verse trailer with all them back, and at the end something gets webbed, they look, it's Spider-Gwen, she drops, she takes off that mask, it's Gwen Stacy, and Andrew Garfield sees her, and to see the look on his face, and then you cut and you say, coming to theaters 2024, people would lose their fucking minds to see that. And it makes sense story-wise, because my last point before I throw these two, that poster was like them in a loving position, right? I don't want that, because that would be very weird for, Gwen Stacy died in my universe, I found another, we're going to shack up. Now, it could...
Fuck.
Yeah, we're going to fuck. Now, it makes sense, because in her universe, she also lost Peter. But I feel like what it would be used for is he is upset about the loss of his Gwen Stacy, she is upset about the loss of his Peter Parker, and they find a way together to make that work, and then they branch off, and they are better for it, and they can move on with their lives, and they feel a little bit of closure. I think you could play up the romancing in trailers and whatnot, but I think in the actual movie, you just do it as like a healing each other one of the thing. And my pitch is, because I'll throw these guys at my pitch is, you have her debut in Amazing Spider-Man 3 or a Spider-Verse movie, and then you could do solo stuff. I think you lose that impact if you do a solo movie first, and then like, oh, look, she's with Andrew. It's like, no, I think you go for the jugular first with that. So, to Kirklin, what do you think of... Oh, go ahead.
Just that last thing you said, that'd be the same thing if we got like an Andrew series, right? Like I feel like such a shocking feature about his appearance was that, okay, this is actually happening, and we didn't see him in a trailer. It was the worst kept secret, but still, we didn't actually see him on screen until that moment happened. Like, I was losing my shit, and I'm not even the biggest fan of those movies. So yeah, no, you're completely right. And just speaking to maybe I should pass to Taylor, because we're just running on time for him.
Well, and one thing I was going to say too for Taylor is like the other thing they could do is they don't my trailer pitch I think is great, but they don't have to do that. You could advertise Tobey, Andrew, and Holland in a movie together, but save Emma Stone as like the surprise in the middle, just like they did with this one, right? So yeah, Taylor, what do you think about Spider-Gwen? What is the chances we actually just see... Okay, here's your question. Do we ever see Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen again?
I would say yes. You really do. I think the success of these old other movies have shown, okay, we have multiple Spider-Men. Literally, they dabbled in it with Endgame with having, two Captain Americas and all that stuff, whatever. But in this case scenario, you have 3 Spider-Men of different iterations, but all Peter Parker all together, and the success is there. So what does that tell you? It means, okay, we can literally put multiple Spider-Man movies. Like, yeah, the success was there with Spider-Verse, but you never know, because, it's an animated film, it's for the kids, for the adults, everyone's going to like it. Now you have Emma Stone, who can come back. You have a great opportunity of putting, again, like you said, this dynamic kind of friend relationship with them, just kind of like bouncing back from their losses and forming that mutual friendship with each other. And then you can use this film to conclude Andrew's storyline as Spider-Man and just blast off with Emma Stone and Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen, just
or set him on a different path, like set him with a new story. Yeah.
Set him off with a new story. But I think primarily you use this as a way to instigate either a series or a movie or some other Gwen Stacy setup, and then you could bring Gwen Stacy in, with Tom Holland down the line. Like, it's just, the possibilities are endless, and I definitely think that it's just it's something that needs to be tapped into, and Sony would be fools not to do it, because I mean, the money's there. People want it. You can see the success. Like, they highlighted Spider-Gwen in their Spider-Verse sequel trailer for a reason. They know that the character is what people are wanting to see more of. So,
and they're just lucky. Like, Emma Stone was already a big star when, like, she was a star, well-known star when she did Amazing Spider-Man. But like I said, she's even bigger now. She's somebody that could headline a movie. If she could headline Cruella and then get a bunch of movie money for a sequel, she can do fucking Spider-Verse, you know, and same thing. Maybe there's a version where same thing. She doesn't want to do a whole solo movie, but I think the same way they used Tobey and Andrew, you could use her like that in a Spider-Verse movie. Have her in there for 40 minutes, conclude her arc, conclude Andrew's, and leave it that if you want to do more with them both, you could. But if not, then they got a good ending. And I think that it's one of those decisions where I think after this, and I'm happy that we hear rumors that they're thinking about it. I would question. Sony is not always the smartest, but you would question how dumb they really are if they didn't even think about doing this type of project. Now, if we hear some rumors of, hey, they tried, they asked, she didn't want to, that's fine. To me, then you get the route of, okay, then do a different with a different actress. You don't even have to do the Andrew thing. And I know people. We talked about this in GUA, and we've talked about this before. I know the whole big hang-up, too, is just same thing with the relationship. Like, well, you know, would it be awkward, stuff like that? You know, she's with a new guy, she's a baby. Here's the thing. You don't know people's shit at all. And that's the thing where, like, it could be awkward. But look, right now we're currently reviewing Dexter. Apparently, you know, that divorce for a while was a little bit awkward. But you know what? Apparently they're friendly now, and they've worked through enough where they're doing some really close scenes in Dexter where it's like, oh man, this is like, could be awkward, but they're making it work. Whether it is personally they're making it work, or whether they both got a fat check and were like, hey, make this work, and they said, yeah, I can do that. I can hang out with my ex for a little bit. And again, you don't know the person's dynamic. I have both types of exes where there's an ex where, yeah, I would not want to be in a room with them at all. Like, doesn't matter what you pay me, this would be a terrible experience. But then there's others like, we're still friendly, we still talk. I'd say, hey, you know, we could like chat up and stuff like that, hang out. Like, that's where it's like, it all depends on how the breakup happens. So I really don't think, I think that it's like a, you know, what Twitter and whatnot would play up. I think we all have some fun with that. But in reality, you have no idea. They could have just both parted ways nicely and like still friendly. Here you go. So let's take our second ad break, and we'll get Kirklin's thoughts when we get back. So yeah, let's do that. And we're back. So I think Kirklin's taking on Marco. So you want to give your quick thoughts, because you got to go soon on the Batman trailer, and then we'll get back in the Spider talk, people. But
yeah, I mean, this trailer was absolutely fantastic. I mean, the audio, you know, you were praising Michael. Michael was just popping off. It was gorgeous. Everything about it was fantastic. Like, it's just the setup was great. I saw someone talking about the chemistry between, you know, Zoe and Robert, and it's just, you can feel it. You can feel the sexual tension and the prowess just emanating off of them in this trailer. They just want to strip each other's costumes off and just go to town. Like,
apparently they did on the set. Remember,
they did it on set.
She was pregnant on the Batmobile.
Yeah,
you can see it in these trailers. You know, the chemistry was there from day one.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm excited. There are so many new visuals. Like at the end when he's breaking the gun apart and using the gun, like taking out the guys, and just like the way the camera was like angled with the smoke, it was just so visually pleasing. Really, really loved it. So I mean, this movie is just gonna be great. I can't wait. And the Riddler, just kind of his dynamic too, and just, you know, the Joker, or not Joker, Bruce Wayne, just like justice. The answer is justice. Like, it's just, yeah, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah,
I missed a lot.
Well, no, yeah, we wouldn't have been all Spider. No, Taylor's out of here. So I thought, well, you guys can kill like 2 minutes, because I'm also going to use the facilities then. So, Kirk, you got any Taylor questions for the last 2 minutes?
Any Taylor questions? I mean, how was your Christmas? This is kind of just breaking fourth wall. It was good.
You know, it was really good. We had turkey. We had all
yummy
kinds of food. Like shit. It was good.
Do you do anything special food-wise? Like for me, because I'm Ukrainian, we'll have like pierogies and stuff as well in the dinner.
My dad's side, my family, they're called they're like a fritter. So it's like a breaded kind of delicacy with corn in it. It tastes so freaking good.
Interesting, because when I picture a fritter, I picture like the fruity ones, like an apple fritter or something.
Yeah, completely different from that.
Interesting. Like a hearty, savory version. Or savory would be sugary, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be. Savory, sugary, yeah. This is more like hearty, high cholesterol kind of fritter.
That's my kind of food. I'm not a sweets guy, but I love that hearty meals. But No, that's always like a high point for me in my Christmas times. There's just like the turkey dinner, mashed potatoes, some nachinka. That's how we call stuffing in Ukraine.
Nachinka?
Nachinka. I think I'm
Nachinka?
saying that right. Yeah. Hopefully my
Do you know what
Ukrainian
nachinka
baba-
is, Travis?
Not in a non-porn sense, I don't.
I'm more intrigued in your definition.
That's
No,
an
it's
F9
it's
conversation.
it's what we call stuffing. I think it's the Ukrainian, version or whatever it might be. But we're just talking about holidays. I don't know what else to
sure.
ask him.
That's good. Well, Taylor Field, you'll be back for Boba Fett, and then you and me are going to be doing newscasts this week later on because we got some Ghost Rider to talk about, which I'm saving for that. So, yeah, there's a tease for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, say goodbye to Taylor Field.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Taylor.
I almost said end broadcast. Bye-bye.
As Bubs, you're completely right. Where I didn't know it was the end, but I knew in the trailer, and like at one point it had like Spider-Gwen land, like, "Hi, I'm Gwen Stacy from like another dimension." So you touched upon it a little bit, Kirkland, but yeah, what are your thoughts? I'll ask the same question: do we ever see Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy / Spider-Gwen in this film, or no?
I think
just in the future. Sorry.
I think it's pretty safe to say yes. I don't think it's bold at all, just for the fact that like it was pretty set that we were gonna get her. Just in a non-COVID world, she was Fortunately, she was pregnant, great for her family. But unfortunately,
you ruined that.
for the viewers, yeah, it made it so we weren't able to see her. But no, I think in a different situation, we would have seen her in that previous movie. So we would have having a completely different topic now. But I definitely think we'll get her back. And honestly, I don't think Kristen's off the table as well.
No.
Yeah.
I think that
Get
would
the
happen.
Spidey love interest in there. We got the Spideys. Let's get the Spidey love interest as well.
That's the movie, just them two together. Like, oh man, I hate Peter Parker. No, but yeah, I like I was saying with Taylor, I do think it will happen. I think they're idiots if they don't do it. I just think that is the build up to that would be tons of fun with her coming back, and it would just be cool to see. And again, we're already dealing with this multiverse stuff. Like, there's tons of things. I'm not sure if you're in the room when I said this, because I was saying this to her, that I don't know if I actually ever see her doing like a full-on solo movie like some of the rumors are. I feel like it would be used the same way as either in an Andrew movie or in another Spider-Verse type of movie, because I think that would be fun too, to see her interact with Tobey and see her interact with Tom Holland and MJ. Like, I do think that would be great. I think there is a money shot of putting, MJ, Mary Jane, and Gwen Stacy all together. Like, I think that's also a really cool moment, So I'm more inclined to believe that she would do that. But again, who knows? If the money's right and the role's right, the script's right, we could see it. And I hope we do, because Spider-Gwen's universe has like a really cool, almost sometimes like Blade Runner-ish feel, like some of the art style. Like if you look at Spider-Verse, like I really like that. And you get fun stuff like Peter Parker was turning into Lizard. Like, you can do all these like fun little differences that we kind of love as fans to see,
Yeah, I don't think this is a spicy take, but I feel like it's hard for me to just see Emma Stone as like the lead for a Gwen Stacy solo project. I feel like they would just go someone younger. Like, I'm not saying she's an old lady or anything, but I just feel like you even touched upon, she's established, absolutely, and like
Cruella.
she's a phenomenal actress. And I feel like leading a Marvel something is, I don't even know how I'm pulling this out of my hat, but I'm sticking with it because this is always fun to be spicy. But I feel like it's just not in her will. Like, it's not something she would really be wanting to do now. Like, I have no backing to take it all, but that's just my feel. Yeah.
That's Aquela's the only reason that I push back, is because after she won an Oscar, it's like, she's not gonna do any of this type of shit. Like she's like an Oscar Academy Award winning actress now. She's gonna do all these really highbrow stuff, and she did The Favorite, she did the thing, and then it's like, oh yeah, she's gonna be in Disney's Cruella. I was like, oh really? Like, she's doing that? Yeah, and she's not the villain either. Like, it's not about the dog. She's just a fashion designer. It's like, oh really? So that's where I do think they could talk her into. If she'll do Cruella, she would do a Spider-Gwen thing. I think, at least. That's my sneaking suspicion, but.
It's such a new character, right? Like, I don't know how old Gwen or Spider-Gwen is, but
Newer than Miles, I think so.
Yeah, and like my only exposure to it would be the multiverse, and then the super minor things I've seen from like the Miles comics, just super minor. So I love the character. I love her character design. You were touching on her universe. I thought what was shown in that in Spider-Verse was just really, really cool and exciting. And doesn't matter if it's Spider-Ham. I'm down for any Spidey content, so I'm all for it. It's just tough for me to picture Emma Stone backing it, but if it is her, I'm completely positive on that. I really like her as an actress. I'm not as gun ho on her as everyone else is, but I still think she's phenomenal.
The hate?
It's not even hate. It's just
huh?
I'm trying
you
to
hate
say
her.
I'm not on the same caliber of just loving her. You know, she's not on my Mount Rushmore of female actresses. So
I don't know if I could say all time, but I could say like maybe current. I don't know if she's the Mount Rushmore, but she's in top 10 for sure. I'd get her up there.
Yeah.
She's somewhere in the ballpark. But yeah,
what about
oh, go ahead.
what about like I was gonna say I was gonna say Spidey female interest, but that's a little too narrow of a list. So
Yeah, there's just and I put her
comic
at number
book
one
love
easily.
interest, I guess.
Comic book probably after Pfeiffer should be up there because I think next to
that's pretty
those
high.
two, Keaton and Michelle had like some of the best chemistry and everything
Yeah.
like that. So it's just because Andrew and her were so great. I think
True.
I do think, unfortunately for them, I think whether it is a Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen project, or Amazing Spider-Man 3, I think the money is them back together. It's like a band that broke up, and it's like, oh yeah, you're fine solo, but we want to see you together. And what I was saying to Taylor is like, at the end of the day, we don't know. They could be completely cool, and it's just people being like, oh man, what would it be? Like, is it gonna be awkward? They might be like, no, not at all. We're still friends, and cool, let's do this. You know. So I think the money is, you could spin off and do things, but I think the money is a poster of those two back together, like that fan art. Again, doesn't need to be loving, but I think that's where they're so tied together, and it was so that type of era or that time frame. You kind of need it to happen. So, and I think it's gonna. I'm putting in the universe because if that does, whether it's one project or the other, Emma Stone coming back, man, that is gonna be one of my most hyped things ever for a comic movie. And yeah, we'll see. So speaking of that, we got some other characters bopping around. Of course, always saying about these things. So let's start with, there was this rumor. So it's funny because you have two scoopers. One I consider a little bit higher, but they're pretty similar in tiers. One scooper this morning put out that Venom 3 is going to be tackling the multiverse, and he would be fighting a Spider-Man. And then a scooper also responded back that said that is complete bullshit and it's not going to be happening. So it's a complete, like, we'll see what happens. How would you feel about that, as far as we were just talking about that, if that could be a setup to, him fighting a Spider-Man, particularly maybe Andrew Garfield, or maybe you guys could Tom Holland. But how would you feel about a Venom 3 of him tackling the multiverse?
Yeah, like I'm not in
Very
love
interested.
with the very interest the Taylor Field line. No, I'm okay with Venom being in his own little world. I think I get more, like, now that I've already swallowed the pill of what Venom is, I'm okay with him just being in his own little playground, like not affecting the other kids that he's playing with, But once he starts getting, like, interacting with the other kids on their playgrounds, here I'm referencing the kids being just the different properties, I get a little more worried because I don't know what he's gonna do to them. He's kind of a loose cannon. Is he gonna degrade the quality of them? Is he gonna raise it? I feel like it's almost safer just not doing it, just because I know what's going to happen out of that outcome. But again, that's coming from someone that isn't really a big fan of those movies. So, like, there's potential for positives out of it. I just see more potential for negatives, unfortunately. But I would be intrigued just to get some more, like, leaked information on who the players might be interacting.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just a bunch of side villains or something, I'm totally down for that. As long as they don't have much consequence to the other characters. But I feel like if you put Venom in a situation where, like, the outcome directly, the outcome relating to him directly affects, like, the other properties, that's where I get a little bit more worrisome, because I just don't trust him.
Yeah, I agree with you if they would just want to have some fun, because, like, it is weird if this, like, I actually don't believe it. I believe that they are going to try and find a way to do Venom and Spider-Man in something together.
Well, I was
And,
gonna ask,
yeah.
like, what's the credibility on the scooper that was scooping it, and then the scooper that completely just shot him down? Is
There's
it like
similar tiers, but the guy that
okay, so-
reported it is, I would say, is higher. We've talked about him a few times. He's Daniel RPK, and he, like, has had some solid scoops and stuff like that, and some bigger ones too. So it is like a he said she said thing, and it's I just, like, if it is true, I just feel like it's Sony gonna be like, well, everyone's loving doing the multiverse thing. Let's do our own thing. Okay, cool. Who are we gonna do it? Oh, we're gonna do it with Venom. Like that's where it's like, oh, that's where you slide Miles or you slide in like Emma Stone, like. But for Venom to do it, I don't know. Oh, S Bubs, this just sounds nightmare fuel. Venom into the Riot verse. I don't want that, But
Oof.
we'll see. I think they will, no matter what. They'll get Tom Hardy his Spider-Man. Who's gonna be? Maybe Andrew Garfield unfortunately has to take the bullet for Holland and Tobey, but maybe he's just happy to be Spider-Man again. And there's history there. Andy Serkis' first movie he ever directed was with Andrew Garfield, so
That's funny.
They've worked together before and stuff. Again, me and Claire told us in GUA chat, I would just feel much more confident if they said Venom 3 is not being written by Tom Hardy or the writer who did 50 Shades of Grey. Let's get just some new talent in there. Tom Hardy has shown this isn't his forte, and 50 Shades and Venom, I don't know about that. But one thing that I talked about before that I feel like I'm happy with Sony looking at these movies being like, oh, this could be, No Way Home. Look at all the success. Now there's a rumor. We got lots of rumors since No Way Home. There's a rumor that they've been thinking about doing a Jamie Foxx Electro spinoff. Now, I don't know exactly how you do that, as if you watched No Way Home, it seemed like they kind of, took that character away. But, multiverse, baby, anything can happen. So does this interest you at all? After obviously he had a rough start in the first one, but he came back, new look, new type of attitude. People seem to like him. How would you feel about a Jamie Foxx Electro spinoff? We got Venom, we got Morbius, we got Craven coming.
I mean, yeah, I'm open. I'm open to it. I'm not as negative as I might be to some other ones, but I love Jamie Foxx. He's a phenomenal actor, and I like the new Electro that we were seeing in this previous version. And like, unfortunately, I think out of all the characters, like, he was just kind of fitting into that category of like, he's just the bad guy that you just don't trust, and that's just what we're gonna get out of him, and that's kind of where they went with him. But I think there's still a lot of possibility with like Electro as the character, but also just Jamie Foxx like showing different layers of an actor. Like maybe there's some personal consequence on like what makes him go down this route, that something we haven't even been exposed to. So maybe they write it in that sense and making him be this more middle ground on like the alignment of good or evil. Like I think it's pretty easy to do, or it's not easy to do, or like easy to do well, but I think it's easy to see the possibility. It's plausible. That's the right word I was looking for.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing of like, one, this was the first time ever I heard a rumored Sony spinoff where I was like, oh, I'd actually maybe be interested in this. Now, I don't know what the story would be. I don't know how it would make him a good guy, but I think it's easy. He just gets into the wrong person. He finds some young person he wants to help. He wants to get back at some bad scientist that did some stuff to him. Like, there's routes you could go. As long as it's a nice, basic Jamie Foxx's Electro taking out some questionable figures, that's fine with me. I don't need him saving the world. I don't need him back in the multiverse. I think Jamie Foxx is a star that, again, it sucks that, if the first Electro didn't go that route, but this one, he kind of had like a little bit of a reboot, and people are, I think, digging this version a lot more. So I think you could sell this movie, and it's one that for me, if you ask me, hey, you want this Venom movie, you want this Morbius movie? No, I always was saying I would rather than be Spider-Man villains first and then spin them off. So if you're going to force feed me Spider-Man spin-off villains as a film, this is one that I might take a little easier, and be like, okay, sure, I like Jamie Foxx, I like what you did. Let's see what happens. And hey, maybe he's still around in the Sony verse and he's fighting Venom, or he's back. Him and Andrew team up. I don't know. None of these ideas sound great to me, but it's just like there is some things you could do with them. And Jamie Foxx is a remarkable star, so I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed if they announce that. Again, lots of these two would also help once I hear a director or writers, because that would make it a lot easier. Like, oh, this person's doing it. This person's doing it. Again, I like Andy Serkis, but when they announced him for Venom 2, I didn't get that excited because I know his track record. I think is like he's a decent director, and that's exactly what happened with Venom 2. So, so now let's get to a very juicy rumor. So this has been back and forth for a while where, oh, we're making a Black Cat Silver Sable movie. No, we're not. We're not doing that. And then a few months ago, it's like, oh, we're making a Black Cat movie again. And then it just kind of went quiet. But now, so this is a twofer. Just like from the sourcing, there's a place called Giant Freaking Robot. Now, they are kind of many times the new We Got This covered. They're a bad site and stuff like that, but they've gotten a few things right. Just a few things, but still, the rumor originated from that. But the problem was, or a good thing, however you want to look at it, is someone backed it up that has a bit more of a track record than them. They were the same person that was talking about the Spider-Gwen stuff where they got a lot of things right recently. S. Bubs actually, I think, was the first one to show us that person. I think their name's like Time to Shine or something like that. But what a name, what a pseudonym. But like, so she or he, whoever, they backed it up by saying, I'm hearing the same things, or this is true. And the report was that this Black Cat spinoff at Sony is still in the works, and they are eyeing, courting, whatever. They want the titular character to be played by Anna Taylor-Joy. Now, you know, the insert Al Pacino, Godfather 3, just when I'm out, they pull me back in. And that's where I remember this is Venom Tom Hardy all over again, because I remember being, man, I don't want a Venom movie without Spider-Man. But it's like, oh, well, it's going to be Tom Hardy. Oh, okay. It might be rated R. It wasn't rated R. They tricked us. They for months said, oh, it might be rated R. But still, like, okay, Tom Hardy in a Venom movie. This could work out. I feel like I'm in deja vu, but I'm down to see it happen, even if I get hurt. Because Anna Taylor-Joy was one of my picks for Gwen Stacy, but if she's going to be Black Cat, that I think is almost even a bit more fitting, because she could pull off some of that. You look at last night, so she could pull off, I think, a bit more of that like flirtatiousness, that kind of, you know, pulling gentlemen in. And I just want her to be in more of these bigger budget things. And, you know, I want to see her in indie stuff too, but I'd love her somehow in the Marvel fold. I don't know where she would be, and we're going to talk about that after. But this is another one where we're like, okay, I would be down to see this potentially go down, because I think that is a pitch perfect casting.
No, absolutely. It's something that I feel like before I heard the rumor, the talk about it, it would have been hard for me to, like, I don't know, pick her as that character, just because of the Black Cat that I'm used to seeing. It's usually like a more mature woman. I'm not saying Anya Taylor-Joy is not that, but I just see like, well, I just see her as more of like the youthful, you know,
Yes.
and then like the Black Cat that I'm used to is like a full grown woman, like like she is a woman, and I'm not saying Anya Taylor-Joy is not that. It's just it's gonna be a different Black Cat if that is the route. But as soon as I saw it, I'm like, man, this is so perfect, and I'm already just theory crafting. You mentioned, you hinted that we'll probably be talking about where we think she's going, but I mean, I've like fallen in love with that actress. She is so phenomenal. I can't remember the first thing I saw her in. It was probably like, it honestly might have been Split.
Oh yeah,
actually, because I didn't watch the Witch till this year. I watched it with my dad, and God, man, that was an experience.
Oh, yeah.
And then just like, yeah, like you mentioned, like seeing her in more big budget things. I feel like the biggest, maybe push back on me here, is the biggest budget thing she's been in. No, it can't be. It can't be. I was gonna say Mutants.
Look at her filmography.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue Glass, like the sequel to Split, because it was like a bigger superhero one.
She was in that, eh? I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. She is going to be in the Mad Max prequel, so that's going to be a big
Okay.
deal. But that's now where she's pretty established, right? So
Yeah.
I think I'll pull up her IMDb, but I feel like that was probably the biggest at the time.
Okay. It was weird to say.
Yeah.
It felt dirty to say, but no, I honestly think she's one of the greatest actresses around right now. And I don't think that's a new thing to say. I think a lot of people have been saying that, but no, she's so phenomenal. So just seeing her in the MCU as a Spidey character, man, that gets my juices flowing. I would love to see that. I think she would bring something really fresh and new to the character, but also stay true to what the character actually is. Like you're saying, the capability to just draw men in with just like her physique and just allureness, if that's a word.
Yes.
I like it. Someone run with it. But I think she would be really, really good also with the Tom Holland thing. And I think it fits script wise with how Tom Holland or Peter Parker left with MJ. You know, Michelle. Forget her last name in it, but I'm just calling her MJ. Michelle Jones, that's right. How like that love situation kind of dissolved, so now he's open to having a more flirtatious something with the character. And I'm not even saying that he has to have MJ out of the picture to have that, but I just think it's a lot easier to see on paper now.
It is funny. It's funny because like, and one, I think New Mutants the budget was like 60 to 80 million. And
oh my gosh.
Glass was only 20 million. So there you go.
What about like Queen's Gambit? What's the budget of like a whole show?
Definitely
like
not
that?
80 million.
No,
Definitely
yeah,
not that.
you're right.
Yeah. So like, it's interesting because with Peter, there's always this thing of he goes, "Oh, I can't be near the person I love." But I love it as a trope because it's just like, well, yeah, but you can't do that with anybody, right? Like, there's nobody you could like. It's not like, oh, I don't want to be with MJ; she might get hurt, so I'll date Gwen Stacy. It's like, no, the same thing applies to her. Same thing being friends with her. So that's like always in the Tobey movies. He's still best friends with Mary Jane. It's like you may as well just be with her because like they're gonna find her. But again, I like that trope of the character always going through that, figuring his way. It's interesting because I don't know if Tom Holland Spider-Man would be like open to flirties, open for game, but you could almost do the angle of, hey, this is someone I could be with that could take care of herself in a sense, like not have to worry as much because she's a crime fighter, or like whatever they do the Catwoman, like she's a criminal, kind of mixing of the worlds of like, can I trust her and stuff like that. So you could play up that angle. I do always wonder, like, yeah, in the MCU, like, would they play it up? Because like until it's been a while. We had a big drought. Then we got Eternals with that massive, huge sex scene, which did not happen. Like they play very like away from sexuality stuff in the MCU, and that would be a very flirtatious type of character. So I would love them to do that. Again, it's what we were talking about earlier, where if this deal were to happen, I think there has to be a bigger conversation that Marvel and Sony would be having then, right? Because then that's multiple characters and not just one. And maybe it's just Spider-Man 4, but that's where I think, and even then a Black Cat movie in itself could be successful. You get the right person behind stuff like that. But I think with Anya Taylor-Joy, who stars building, that does help it a lot. I think she's a name that, people don't like entirely know. Like, look at Soho, didn't do the greatest, but I also think that's a trippy, movie that was coming on in the midst of Bond and Halloween and all this stuff. It was like not the right time for it. So I think she's getting around enough because of Queen's Gambit that people would be interested, and I think they would have lots of fun. Do you have anything more on Black Cat specifically?
Nope.
So that's where I was going to tie it into a story that we're going to talk about next after this ad break. And we're back. So the reason I was talking about Black Cat, and this is where it's interesting of like the table could be kind of up there, is so this place reported, and I'd say like higher C tier and whatnot, but still it's still a C tier. It's not your 4, it's not your Variety, stuff like that. They had reported that they had heard their Marvel source pretty much told them that, yeah, there's a Kraven film being made, but there's also plans to have Kraven in the MCU. Now, I don't know what that means. They didn't talk about that. Probably likely a Spider-Man 4 or something like that if the deal does happen. But they also even specified they don't know if it would be Aaron Taylor Johnson's Kraven or it would be their own separate Kraven. And that's where I was talking about before. It's like, I feel if that's the case, if they have this thing where he starts off in Spider-Man, like MCU Spider-Man, and does his own film, I feel like there has to be some sort of bigger, I guess not really a bigger deal. I don't know. Like, I don't know how that works. Like, because I guess technically, no, don't actually. Because if you think about it, they have Michael Keaton's Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, but then he's going to be in Morbius, right? So they could just do it, but then it's up to, I guess this is where I'm hitting, the magnets, like a positive and a negative going together. Or is it the other way? Is it two positives going together would push apart, right?
That's right.
So,
yes.
Would Feige want to be like, oh, you guys cast a Kraven and we want to do Kraven, but it's like, oh, here, use this guy who was already Quicksilver in the MCU. That's where I go, like, that's where I mean, like, as far as the deal goes, like, would they want to do that or would they do a different one? But what we were just talking about with Black Cat, where maybe that's why these rumors could be happening, because you could have Kraven, let's say he is in the MCU, and then they say, okay, Sony, we're going to go make his own film. Maybe that's how it also happens, where, yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy is going to get her own Black Cat movie. They do that, but then she ends up in a Spider-Man 4. How do you feel about that route of seeing a Kraven that Sony's already casted? They're planning on doing a spin-off movie with him, but he could also appear in the MCU.
I feel like a good way to, I feel like it's less than ideal, because if you run that route, it's not going to be as clean as just having like the one solid. I don't know how much of that is reliant on just contract negotiations, just with the Sony Marvel thing, but I'm not gonna say it's impossible. I guess this is going back to the plausible route again. Me being Switzerland / Poland. But because you just run the risk of one being very noticeably different from the other version, and I don't think that's ever good, unless it's going from really, really terrible to good, which which could be the case. I mean,
It's funny, like if MCU, let's say they do Spider-Man 4, right, and like, okay, we're doing Kraven's villain, which I want. He's one of the people. If you ask me who I'd want as the number one villain that they're not doing in, because Feige kind of gave some quote recently, like why they didn't do Doc Ock or Green Goblin. He even said like, oh, if we ever do Doc Ock, like how could we top Alfred Molina? And they brought him back, right? So I almost do think that like Doc Ock, Goblin, like I don't think they're gonna touch him. I think they use that as like the send off for those characters for a while at least. Maybe Sony will use them in other projects, but I think as Feige's concerned, like let's do some new stuff. If you're talking about me, like film, like villains that have been never on film, Kraven is up there, especially right now. With they don't know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but Spider-Man might still be in this awkward, like with Jonah harping, like, does the public trust him? Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? He might be in that gray area. That would make sense for Kraven to come hunt him down. But it would be so funny if we get a Kraven film and then also in the MCU there's a different actor playing Kraven. It'd be the exact same thing that Aaron Taylor Johnson went through with Quicksilver, where he was Quicksilver in the MCU in 2015, but the year before Evan Peters fucking killed as a Quicksilver. So when we got Aaron Taylor Johnson, everyone's like, he's not as good as Evan Peters.
Oh, that's so sad.
And you know who they cast as Kraven this go around? Evan Peters again. No. But like that would be very funny if you, and that's where it's like, I feel like there's other characters where we could live in a world where we could get a Tom Holland Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 3. And I think that works. I think like you were saying, I think it would be very weird if we got an MCU Kraven and then like a year later we got a Sony spinoff Kraven with a new actor. That would be kind of weird. And that's why I wonder, either I think there's a bigger deal or maybe something like that Aaron Taylor Johnson project just never happens, you know? It's just one of those just fades away in
Which
Hollywood.
is entirely possible. We've seen it done many times before. I'm still waiting for my Channing Tatum Gambit movie.
100%. It's coming, yeah. Well, and it happened, but how many, like, Ezra Miller's Flash movie was supposed to be out in 2018. It's out 3 years there. It's happening. But for so many years, we were like, is it actually going to happen or is it just something that's in there? There's so many films that happen that, like, same thing. There's a Jackpot film at one point. Sony was talking about making an Aunt May movie and that never happened, you know? So it's one of those things where, as Bob says, Wolf Boner was his codename to infiltrate the Avengers by getting close to Wanda and finding out Spider-Man's identity. Wow. That Craven is on
He's always got these wild pulls, as Bubs does.
Yeah. But yeah, anything more like on Kraven, MCU, that sort of deal?
I think my last thing on Kraven would be just like picturing him in a film, which, because he's technically a Spidey character, which would mean he's under the Sony umbrella. I was just kind of theory crafting in my mind what a good placement for him would be. And I think it would be kind of fun if he was in the same world as multiple spider people. Like maybe he's just hunting one down and then he comes across the wrong one. And then like he's just going through like it's funny because I almost picture him as the protagonist in this script. I'm kind of
that's how they're pitching the Sony movie one. He's just hunting Spider-Man over and over.
Which like it could be fun if you just have so many different versions. Maybe he's hunting different Lizardmen or something like that, and that's where you find Peter Parker, right? Like the Gwen Stacy one. I think that's really fun. But, and here's where I might come off a little harsh. I feel like it would have to be a really, really good lead as Kraven to like have that, and I just don't see Aaron Taylor Johnson having that cojones to carry that. Now, again, this is probably gonna be something that's completely just in my head canon. It'll never be translated whatsoever because I'm usually wrong in these sorts of things. But I think there's just a lot of possibilities of having a Kraven story like that, where like he's just a hunter. Like this is him. Maybe he's being contracted through the government or something to take down these dangerous people, and then But again, I'm spewing my head thoughts.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's funny you brought that up, but I don't think I fully said that. But when I saw these rumors, I was like, oh. I saw the headline of Kraven might be in Sony and MCU, and then after I read the story, I didn't do what Taylor did. I read the story, and then it was like, oh, okay, it could be by a different actor. But at first, when I thought, oh, Aaron Taylor, I don't care about him being in the MCU because they've done that before. They'll probably do it again. It's a little weird. Want to be like, hey, who's this guy? But I don't think you're gonna have Kraven and Wanda interact. So I think we'll be a-okay. So like, my whole thing was, I was instantly like, I wasn't that excited because like, oh yeah, it's just Taylor Johnson as Kraven. You know, like that doesn't get me hyped. It wouldn't be like, oh, we have Kraven. Who's the actor's gonna play him? It's like, and don't get me wrong, maybe we'll see a movie and he'll blow me a bit away and I'll be like, no, I was really wrong. I judged him poorly. You know, great job as Kraven, but I just still don't see it. So that's why it doesn't get me as excited. My pitch is still that I guess it goes two ways, but I'm very excited to see if they do another deal because we're getting to Spider-Man 4. I still wonder like who the MCU character they would use because I've been talking about that with the GOA recently, and I think like it's funny who knows after Hawkeye, but I still think like Vincent D'Onofrio and what's his name, Charlie Cox and Matt Murdock. I think that's cool for the fans, but I don't know if Sony looks at that as two massive characters. Like I don't know if it'd be worth it. Like my pitch was. First one had Downey, second one had Sam Jackson, third one had Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't think Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio together equal one of those actors as far as box office, right?
No.
And that's where, if they are in the MCU, I want Daredevil and all that, but I think they need a bigger character. And it's funny because my other pitch, what I pitched after Spider-Man Far From Home was, this is perfect setup for Jonah to bring in Scorpion because that's the origin. Like he works with Scorpion, he gets a project to make him all strong and gets the suit so he can take out Spider-Man. So I'm like, this is set up perfectly. My only thing is we have the Scorpion actor. He's just not the biggest like name. So I still think we need like a bigger name villain sort of actor, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Do you, now that you've seen No Way Home, do you lean one way or another towards like a certain villain you'd want to see in Spider-Man 4, whatever it be? Hopefully no more home titles.
Ooh, that's fun. I mean, Craven. Just go with my pitch so that I can go with the Kirklin told you so.
That's
I
what
would
I
really
most want. Yeah, is Craven.
Yeah,
I think it'd be lots of fun.
Yeah, because again, if there's a bunch of different spider people or just like other good type people, and like him, like it's just a reason for him to hunt down multiple people. So that's kind of an easy one. Because it's hard for me to picture Scorpion like leading the head villain there.
You need another one there, and that's where. I think you could you have Charlie Cox there, but that's where I think you could have fun of like doing a Black Cat, like making some other characters a bigger star. Because Holland's a big star, but you still want the main villain to be somebody,
No, exactly, and no, that's a great pick because like just in my mind, it's tough to just have a solid single villain. Like especially just at this stage because we've already had so many wild things attached to Spider-Man that it's like, okay, we can't just go down to him fighting like fucking Shocker or something like that. Like that's the main villain. Mm-hmm. I feel like that would be a major step down just from what we've seen already with the Spider-Man films. So maybe there's different players. Maybe there's some people that run on that line of ambiguity. Are they good? Are they evil? Kind of something like Black Cat, who's kind of in that gray area. I think something that could be really fun. I think I mentioned it before on cast, and I kind of backpedaled a bit because it's just so close to something like S.H.I.E.L.D. is like the Silver Sable and her crew. I forget even what their names are, but it's same sort of like. I'm gonna have to look it up because it's gonna bug me. But just something like that, where it's like an organization that's kind of the villain. I think again, it hits on that scale of what the main threat should be, but it's not just like Thanos, like it's not just a big bad that they have to take on, and that could be really fun because then you can get into, I don't know, maybe there's more people that Spider-Man has to ally with to really take them down, or just other moving parts that makes this movie seem a lot more threatening than just here's a villain and then Spider-Man's just going to outmuscle him or something like that. Like there's a lot more factors that makes it a challenging villain.
Yeah. No, it could work. I'm still pulling for Grey Goblin. That's who I want. They said no Green Goblin, but
that's the meme pick, of course.
Yeah. No, and I do always wonder when they talk about these classic characters, does that mean like goblins are off the table in general, or is it just Green Goblin? Because I do want something with Hobgoblin. I don't want it to be Ned. There's other characters that could be Hobgoblin, but yeah, there's still tons of stuff. Again, my personal the dream pick is Fisk. I would love to be Fisk, and you get your Daredevil, Spider-Man team up, and you get your Hammerhead maybe in there and Tombstone. But I just don't know. Maybe they can get him to that point, but I just don't know if Kingpin and his hat are big enough for Sony to be like, yeah, this is a big character. This is who we're gonna use. So the good thing, just like Batman, Spider-Man has like a plethora of bad guys, that you could pull off. And look at this one. They jump back into the pool to take characters from the past. And even then, this is why I think we're going to get you could get a Scorpion and a Chameleon, or a Scorpion and a Kraven, a Scorpion and Rhino, is because I think, whether people like it or don't like it, I think the symbiote is going to be probably the main thing of Spider-Man 4, or one of the main things, right? So you could make that more of the villain. I don't know if it has to be Venom per se, but just like him dealing with himself, and that's why he could be hitting on Black Cat too. He's feeling a bit more bit more adventurous with that symbiote, and maybe, you know, Peter Parker loves MJ, but the symbiote loves Black Cat. I don't know, but it's, you know, we'll see.
That'd be a completely different movie than like what most people would expect, but I would be down for it.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Did you ever find out what they're called?
Yeah, well, it seems like they've gone through some different names. Like you could, like she's apparently like the leader of Silver Sable International, which I guess is like the organization. But also in the comics, she's the leader of the Wild Pack, which is again just like a mercenary crew. So they could really go anywhere with that, and like they could just make something new. But yeah,
there you go. Well, finally, for people that were, I think I hit all my Spidey topics that we had there. Yeah, so finally, people that like, I love that Taylor made the main thumbnail image of Batman and Catwoman. The main story was the Spider-Man stuff, but you know, it's fine. So the people that either you could listen to the cutouts, and that's why we do cutouts, because it's right there. But then the people that have been, you know, thirsting over the Batman, we're gonna talk about some Batman right now. So Kirk and Pat, so we're gonna do what we did last time: pull up that trailer, do a screen share, because we got to do that this way. So while he's doing that, I'm just gonna say this trailer feels very much, because I've seen so many people, I don't want to see anymore. It spoils so much. It shows some stuff. It gives some context, but when you're in the movie and if it's great, I don't think it's gonna matter. I think there's still gonna be tons of surprises, and this to me plays very much like a final trailer to me. That's what it felt like. It felt like this is because we're pretty much January. We're 3 days away from the new year. We are then February, March. We're literally 2 ways away. For a second, when you do screen share, it shows it as like another person joining. I'm like, who the fuck, Taylor? Come back. We're like, it's literally pretty much 2 months. Like Taylor, or when would it be? So it's like 7 days till it's literally 2 months away. You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy
March
to think
4th.
about, and it's just. This feels like a final trailer. This feels that one's going to play. And I just, everything. I'm not sure if you saw any of the artwork they released from Empire. You could search that on the side if you wanted.
No,
but
I
like
haven't.
they had covers. They had all this artwork they did. They have full shots of Riddler in costume, Penguin in like a leather chair. Everything. This reminds me very much like Warner Brothers. When they want to play, they can fucking play. Like when they want to do their marketing, like they can knock out of the park. This reminds me very much of The Dark Knight and how they marketed it, but like everything looked great. And I loved it. This trailer, I loved again. It's like not as hype as like the very first one, but that's just because like that was the first one. I've always said that's where we didn't know what we were getting. And wow, this trailer is great. And I think the biggest thing is the first trailer was to show just like what this world's about, right? Okay. The second one to me was showing like, oh, some of the mystery and some of the twists we could be taking. This had some of that in there, but this trailer to me, that's why it's called The Bat and the Cat. Well, not on this YouTube we're watching, but the official trailer title name is Bat and the Cat. To me, this was, I already excited for Zoe Kravitz, but this was like the mini showcase for her. And man, she's just like, I'm not going to say she's going to pass Michelle Pfeiffer. I need to see the movie, but she looks like she's set up to do it, or she could be like on that level, and thought this trailer was great. Kirklin, Pats, I'm excited to get your thoughts, because you sometimes get mad at some certain trailers when I make you watch them like Dune. But as I always say, Kirklin forgets those trailers after a month, so I know we're safe. So
Yes, no, I think this was like a perfect just a perfect number 3 trailer. I like the new stuff that it showed just kind of expanded upon the things that we had already seen. So I don't think it showed like a brand new scene, for example, which if you get too many of those, especially spread across multiple trailers, it's like, okay, well, I can piece together at least these scenes. And you mentioned, most of the time I do forget most of the stuff that happens in the trailer, but I feel like if I can still remember like a certain location, and a lot of the times it's like the final location that we're going to, or maybe it's like, okay, well, I haven't seen this yet. I know we're getting there, so this is probably going to be the end scene. But no, I thought this was perfect because it just, again, expanded upon some things, showed us some a little bit deeper takes on our characters, whether it was Bruce Wayne or Selina Kyle. Like I thought all the stuff that was revealed in this was just really great. Whether it was touching upon like the recluseness of Bruce Wayne and that one interviewer being like, why don't you like do anything for the town? It's kind of funny, you know, because it's like a side-by-side scene of Batman just kicking ass and like saving the day, but
doing everything for the town, putting his life on the line.
But it
lazy bum.
Yeah, and I still think that's a fun line to drop in a trailer like this, because it's not revealing any spoilery stuff like, oh, how does it feel to be related to the Riddler that's murdering all these people? Like, you know, like if it was something like that, it's not a spoiler at all. It's just like, why aren't you going these specific philanthropist routes that your parents were doing. And you mentioned the Selena Kyle stuff. All that was great. I'm liking the character more and more the more I see her. So I'm at the point I'm just so goddamn excited for, for this movie to actually be out. Now that we have Spider-Man out, it's like this is the main thing in my crosshairs. I'm so excited. And the Riddler stuff that was shown in this was really, really fun too.
Well, and here's the thing, because I'd seen some people that, it spoils some stuff. I think it's the same way as you said of like, it hasn't shown anything to me that it's shown some new footage, but it hasn't shown any big plot points that we hadn't seen before. Because I don't know if this is it. I actually haven't been online much this weekend, but I imagine what everyone's referring to is there's one point where Riddler's talking and then he ends and then he says Bruce Wayne. Now, this is something that we had in a trailer a few weeks ago where it was like Riddler saying a line and he said Bruce Wayne. So everybody had already seen this. And what I will say, I'll keep saying, do I believe Riddler knows Batman's Bruce Wayne? Yes, I believe that. Hashtag trash totally. So after the first trailer, when he said a certain line, like, oh, this guy fucking knows. But you know what? They've never once showed us a single scene of that actual dialogue happening. They've never shown the moment of Paul Dano looking at Batman or surrounded by people saying, Bruce Wayne. Like, every time it is all over different footage with him saying Bruce Wayne. So it could easily just be the Riddler saying Bruce Wayne at any point in the movie. You cut that and you throw that anywhere. And oh, he knows he's Bruce Wayne. You know, like that's where it's like if they were to show that scene, like in talking about Spider-Man Far From Home with the Zendaya and Peter Parker thing, right? That was in a way where it's like, oh, that's not edited. Literally, that's the scene of her saying, oh, you're Spider-Man. It's pretty obvious. It was that way in the trailer. It was that way in the movie. They've not shown us even if he does know Batman is Bruce Wayne, they've not shown us that scene. So to me, it's just, I think for the first time ever, I think we talked about this before, that they're just using that like idea of a villain may know Batman's identity, and that's very scary. Villains have learned his identity in other films, but it's never been like a huge main plot point of the villain to maybe hold that over him. And it seems like this is a lot about like legacy and identity. So there's nothing to me of like it really spoils that much in my opinion. You know?
No,
like, nothing that they haven't put themes before, or like we're crazy because we just have like we do this where we pause and we dissect it. But like for a while they've been hitting home like, oh, the Waynes might be shady. This to me was for the GA of like, yeah, the Waynes might be shady, but before in other trailers they have that all in there if you watched it, you know. Like we've covered this, you know.
No, absolutely. And just another example of like not showing like they're showing a new take on something that we've already seen. So a good example of that would be like when Batman like takes out Penguin. Like here, we get that scene again, like when the cars are like crashing or whatever, but it's just a different angle, and it's not okay. Now I know that he maybe rolls 3 times as opposed to what he did before, and I think that's such a smart way to attack. You can't do that in every film, I get that, but for this film specifically, it was so well done because they showed a little bit more breadcrumbs with the Riddler connection to Bruce Wayne. They showed a little bit more breadcrumbs to Selena Kyle. Like even I forget who Bruce was dialoguing with, but he's basically like questioning, like I don't even know if I can trust her or what her motives are. And so all that stuff was great, and then you get the phenomenal line where it's just like, what does Bruce say specifically? It's like, oh, you're gonna get yourself killed. Good thing I got 9. Like it was just so well executed. It was so smooth too. Oh man, I'm ready for this film. Shall we jump into this?
Well, yeah, got more my last point that I thought I was forgotten, but I thought I could grab. That's what I was gonna say. When you're saying you see the chase from a different angle, I can promise you from just what we've done from these trailers, but also just Matt Reeves as the director, we could see all these scenes like in the trailers a few times, but I don't think it's gonna compare to when we actually like fully get the scene in the cinema. Like when we're seeing this, there's no way it plays the same way. Just even the feel of it, like getting this with no like trailer music, the actual audio editing, the score, like. It's going to play so good, and that's where it's like, I don't care if seeing some of the stuff, because I feel like they're still doing a good job. So, yeah, let's take our last ad break, and then we'll get to watch this trailer, and we have some Patreon questions as well about the Batman, so we'll be right back. And we're back. So, yeah, hit play now. If there's anything to pause on, you do it.
Do I want audio for this? I can't remember.
I don't think it plays audio on my side.
Oh yeah, it does for me.
Wow, I can't believe they spoiled the Catwoman has multiple cats. Oh, I know, huge spoiler. And that's what you were talking about. Yeah, that's what you were talking about too. When it was like, oh, hey, you're not doing much. We've talked about this before, where it seems like he's not the public Bruce Wayne yet, and I think this movie's going to inspire him to be. It's just
that's a good point too. Because oh man, that car is gorgeous. I'm not even a car guy, but it's
no, me
gorgeous.
either, yeah.
And just like the color tones of this scene, like I'm not like a cinematographer or anything, but just like the je ne sais quoi about it. It's just like dark tones, and I think that's just a good symbolism for what Gotham is. Just a very dark place with a lot of corruption and not like sunshine and rainbows. I don't think we see many of those days in Gotham.
Well, and that's what other people have said. It's just like, that's why I can't wait to see this movie. Everything in... Okay, they could be showing us the best stuff in the trailer, but like so far, everything in the trailer, like just even shots like this, they just look fucking crazy good. Like it just looks like a smorgasbord for the eyes. Like so much of this stuff looks like comic books come to life. So yeah, I can't wait to see the full 2 hours, 2.5 hours of this. Like
no, I'm juicing for it. And just I forgot to mention you saying that like maybe he's not the full on public Bruce Wayne yet, and I like that route because I feel like I've never seen that version of Batman before, and it's super exciting, and I'm just so excited to see Robert Pattinson go down that route of being just a really recluse person, really unsocial, and then having to like put on that facade of being a public image. Like I hope we get some good moments like that.
Oh yeah.
But okay.
So he's walking around. This is what we're talking about, the Batmobile. There's some great shot. Like just like you're kind of getting like the first person view of the Batmobile. It's fantastic. It's great. And poor Penguin. He's not gonna have
this scene is actually sprinkled throughout the trailer quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of the last shots too. Oh no, never mind.
That
this is the shot
right
I was thinking of.
When it showed the back of the car and it tumbled over. Oh my god.
That was the one I was talking about, how it's like the same image but different.
Yeah, we got lots of Riddler stuff here. Now this is where pause it because I had one thing to talk about where Riddler, big cell phone guy,
First of all, I laughed so hard just seeing the FaceTime.
I actually noticed that.
Of Batman.
Batman. Oh, Alfred, I screenshotted it again.
Yeah. What are you wearing?
Yeah. I didn't think you'd show up. There's a few things they showed in that trailer that I want to talk about. Where one, they showed the new like Wayne symbol, so that's kind of cool. But
yeah, that's right.
The two things they're hitting up in this moment is like they're talking about like, oh, like you're not like your parents. Like they're really trying to say like, oh yeah, they're good people. And then now it's the opposite of Alfred literally asking like, why like. We'd kind of got the suspicion from other trailers, but this is like, hey, this riddle is literally for you. Like, it's for the Batman. And it seems like that's a big vibe and theme, obviously, because Riddler, Batman. But this is setting the stage of, okay, he's trying to, even in this scene right here, he's like, I finally got your attention, or says something like that, And that's where I like where the trailer starts of like, oh, yeah, you're Wayne. Why aren't you like your parents? But then it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been like my parents.
Yeah. No, yeah. And if I was... if we weren't here breaking that down, it probably would have been easy to think, the opposite of what the trailer's probably portraying. I'm excited to just see that shift in the actual movie itself.
Yeah.
Shall we keep going?
You got the FaceTime. Yeah, go ahead. You got the FaceTime. Again, as I've said before, you don't see a single image of Paul Dano's face yet. They're hiding it, so I feel like there's going to be some scars or stuff like that. Bruce Wayne looking jacked, which is good for him. Pause right here. Two things I have to say. One, there's going to be some humor in here. So if people thought it was just going to be completely depressing, there's some jokes in here. Fun little cat stuff of, I pick up strays. I will say it. We've said this, I think, from the first trailer. He's doing the Bale voice, in my opinion. Like, he's doing the growl. It's not as growly as Bale's, but he's doing the, like, why so many cats? Like, he has, like, a darker, like, a deeper bass and voice. Again, I prefer that, but as more I hear his voice, I like it and stuff, so.
No, absolutely, because you can't just have Cedric Diggory talking to Selena Kyle here. I love that they're like in her apartment here, and it's just still that like raggedy, that raggedy 1-bedroom apartment that at least I'm used to seeing from the character. And she's drinking milk. She's got all her cats and stuff like that. But it's funny because like if I took Zoe Kravitz like out of this scene, I could easily see her just living in some like suave mansion just from what's like shown of the character. But she's still just a little cat thief, cat burglar.
And what's interesting, and we'll see this a few shots in the trailer, it was so dumb of me because at one point I'm like, so they're going with like Bruce knows Selena, that's Catwoman. And I'm like, well, fuck, yeah. The whole marketing, she's had her mask off Travis. But like, what's interesting is like the power dynamic here, because that's the line they might have said it right now. They're about to say it, where it's Alfred saying, "Can you have a new friend?" And he's like, "I don't know. I don't really know if I could trust her. What the deal is." What I like though is, so she could be in love with Bruce, flirting with Bruce, has relationships. She could also be in a very awkward position where he knows she's Catwoman and a criminal. She doesn't know shit about him. So like, think about the power play that he has over her, of like almost at any point he could turn her in and she could go to prison, versus what could she do against this guy. So that's a classic Batman trait of like, I have some over you, I'm gonna hold it. But that might be a thing of like, she might actually be like flirting with her and whatnot, just to, I think eventually they will have true feelings, but in the beginning it might be just to like fuck him over and be like, oh, I could use this against him. I don't know who he is, but if I could kind of make him fall for me, I could, you know, get the better of him. And that's what I think they're going to play up. They're already showing, but I love that idea of him having that over. So it's going to put her in a very awkward position.
Well, maybe you can help me out here because I'm not as versed in Batman as you are, but like I feel like that's kind of her play majority of the time is to maybe just use her, like we were talking about Black Cat earlier, like use her intrigue to get the better of people, but also maybe look vulnerable. But she's just got so many more tricks than you'd expect on the surface.
It's always a combination of, does she really feel this way, or she does feel this way, but can I trust her to be a good person, like not to break the crime, not to break the law and stuff like that.
Right.
And up until I think it was a few years ago that they actually got married, and now they're like very much just together, Batman and Catwoman. But the majority, the huge vast majority of Batman Catwoman is always the, can I trust this woman? And that's the fun thing, because you never know, right? Because that's what I'm wondering by the end of this film where they're going to be, and I feel like she is going to do something that will not be on her good side, or not be on his good side. Because I feel like it's not going to end like, oh, they're together. If we're getting a trilogy, if we're getting a trilogy and they might be in it together, I feel like she's going to betray him at some point, maybe hard, just to, whether it is to get away or whether it is to screw him over or just to save her own ass. I'm looking very forward to that.
No, absolutely. And that's something I was asking myself, like, how is their interaction going to just begin? Like, is Batman saving the day and she's the criminal here that he kind of comes across, and then that's how it starts? Or did they already know about each other in the past? Like, obviously, this is a little bit different from our regular Batman origin stories that we're used to. So maybe they already had some run-ins together. So I'm really excited to just dive into that reasoning, because I really think these two are going to be, I guess with Paul Dano as well, like they're going to be the most intriguing things of this movie.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm very, very excited to just see if Selena Kyle has her own plays here, and I kind of am expecting that. As you know, as far as my knowledge of the character goes, I feel like that's fitting.
There's definitely, you can hit play. There's definitely one thing we get you to pause on coming up here, because it's quite okay. So,
actually,
they're riding together. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
just right here. This is them. Like, oh, is that? Yeah, that's them.
Right, pause. Yeah, so go back. So go scrub back a little bit. Yeah. This is where I was like, and then hit play and pause really quickly, right? So they have,
she like hit her head on the table.
She did, but this is where I have an expression I like to use about a movie with it fucks or not, and that's the idea. I was like, it's just a very sexual movie. Now I guarantee you, I think, well, for a time I did think this would be rated R. I think it will be PG-13, but the fact that there's a scene here where they're fighting, he slams her down on a table and they're practically in missionary position, and when you hit play after and pause on it, they're like face to face, like they are face to face, groin to groin, crotch to crotch, like
pants are off. We can't see it in this scene, but once you see the movie.
Well, they'll remember on set, you know. But like, this is the thing where I love the Batman trilogy, the Nolan trilogy, sorry. But like, I liked Anne Hathaway and Christian Bale enough, but it was missing some of this. Missing some of that Pfeiffer, Keaton, like that moment.
It was very vanilla, you know?
Yeah. It was safe. It was safe in a sexual way. It was more just about like, oh, she's a criminal, which is fine. But there's this aspect too where in Batman Returns, there's literally a scene where Michelle Pfeiffer just licks Keaton's face. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of like sexual and kind of like there's like flaunting. The fact that they're going to be fighting, but then they end up in this like position of like being so close. I was like, man, this is gonna how Batman Returns made me a man. This is gonna make a lot of men, a lot of boys, a lot of girls like grow up. This is gonna be a puberty movie for a lot of people because you're gonna be watching as a fight scene, but you're gonna be like, this feels like a little too sensual and close. Like, and there's even this moment when now you can hit play when you go face to face. And then if you pause there, at one moment she just kind of like moves up on him. Like, I don't know what she's doing. She's trying to get, but it looked like.
Oh yeah, like that.
It is. Yeah. There is going to be lots of chemistry going on. If we were doing MTV Movie Awards, best kisses going to these two, I guarantee you. You know, it just, man, they're going to be spicy.
You're in the back there looking spicy.
Oh, he's already obsessed, you know.
Alfred or him?
Oh.
Yeah, no, I no need to echo what you said.
Yeah.
That was great.
They're going for it. Let's just say they're going for it, you know. So, yeah, and then Riddler with a gun there, or a Riddler goon with a gun. It's looking like the Riddler.
It definitely looked like the Riddler. It
Yeah.
almost looked like he had a harpoon gun or
He
something.
looked like he had a Kurt gun, you know. That's what Kurt looks
Oh, it
like.
might be.
This is Kurt's. This is Kurt Starkskin from Dexter. Look at
Oh
that.
my god, it's like Paul Dano sitting down eating venison with someone.
It's not the way it's supposed to be, Batman.
I'll be right back. I got something to do. Comes out looking like that.
Yeah.
Where do you think this must? Yeah, this isn't the same location as that church. Hey, this is something completely
No, this
different.
is something else.
Yeah.
This is something
This-
very creepy and big, and it's not looking good for our heroes here.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the writing on the floor with like all the cryptic messages, but that must be in the Bruce Manor because I mean Bruce is he's got no shirt on. He's obviously got no
We've
cowl.
talked about this. We go back and forth where it is and stuff like that, and it's interesting because I don't know if it's happened yet, but this is where we start to get some dialogue where Riddler's like, you were a part of this and everything like this, and Bruce Wayne's like, how am I a part of this? Now it's funny because the very first trailer we got you'll see. This one he says, oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were. And that's what's going to be interesting again, where it's fun that Batman's going to have this dynamic with the people as Bruce Wayne. He's going to have this dynamic with criminals like Penguin. He's going to have this dynamic with Selina Kyle if he can trust her. He's going to have the dynamic of Riddler and trying to best him. And then now trying to deal with his family. The same way later on, it's going to get that line of Alfred. He says to Alfred of like, you've been lying to me this whole time. Again, I'm all for shady Waynes. We've never gone to live action. Let's do it. Let's make them fucking, not too bad as we talked about some of those. Like, let's have a limit here. But if they're criminals or they're, sus, like, let's do it. And this trailer is definitely hidden vibes that we've been talking about for the past 2 years have been hidden vibes. But that's just like every shot of Riddler is just ominous. He just like, you don't want to mess with him. Like, I would definitely fight Kurt before I fought this guy,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's funny because it's such a different version than what I mean. I'm used to the Jim Carrey one with the crazy suits and the very flamboyant just look to him. This looks like a modern day, like I don't know, like terrorist or something. Like he just looks so terrifying. And for someone just wearing like a slightly tinted green costume with like a makeshift balaclava thing, like he's freaky.
Glasses underneath too. Still, he's still rocking that.
Yeah.
So that's a great shot of Gotham right there. All these shots of Gotham are just like, oh my god.
Yeah, this is where we're just getting some Riddler dialogue saying that he's part of this as well.
Yeah, and so again, see, that's where we revealed that.
Batman's there.
Batman's there, and again, I think we've talked about this before. Where I feel like Riddler's gonna get arrested, not like first thing in the movie, but pretty early on, because I feel like that's gonna be part of the fun. Is some of this stuff will be happening, but like Batman can't get to him because he's behind bars and stuff like that.
That's always a fun dynamic, right?
Yeah, and it's like how far will he go and stuff, and again, all these great shots and. Yeah.
That's the really not as smart as you thought you were.
Yeah, exactly. And he talks about him being Bruce Wayne, which again, until we see that scene, let's see if it actually happens. I don't. And then that's when we got that door of where it all began. That man, the horror loving vibe in me saw that and was like, let's fucking go. That looks like right out of a horror movie, dude. Like,
oh yeah,
it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
And like we've talked about this before already, the orphanage and Riddler having some bad origins. Yeah, I'm all for this.
So is that what this must be then? The orphanage?
I think so. Yeah, I bet it's the orphanage. Which we also learned, and so it's weird because people are having this meme like, why do filmmakers hate Batcave? Because in Nolan, Batman Begins, it got blown apart, and he didn't have it for the trilogy. In Dark in what was it, in BVS. I think he had somewhere else because Wayne Manor was like all disheveled and broken and everything like that. In this one, his headquarters is not in Wayne Manor; it's in Wayne Tower actually. And Wayne Manor though now is an orphanage. Funny enough, so to see where that all plays in, and again the whole vibe of like Bruce being an orphan as well. Yeah, just loving it.
It's funny because my guess was going to be Wayne Manor, and that would have been technically right, I guess, if it's an orphanage. So
yeah,
there you go. But no, this shot, man, just bone chilling.
Mm-hmm.
Lie to me, Alfred.
Alfred and Bruce seem like they got a good relationship. It sounds like it. So there's that Wayne symbol. And then this is classic cops just being like, hey, is this guy bad? Can we trust Batman? Stuff like that. You need that in every movie, right? You know, can you fully trust the Bat?
Man, anytime I get a Batman gadget, the little boy in me just gets so excited. It's so fun. I feel like that's one of the biggest things that drew me to the character of Batman was, the cloak and the cowl and everything, but just his gadgets. It gets a little ridiculous if you go down the Batman 66 route, but it's so fun, man. Just like the Bat Hook, the Batarang, like those things.
Everyone needs Bat Shark repellent, you know? You never know when you're going to need it, so. And this was that great line of like, you're going to die.
Don't throw your life away.
Yeah, I got 9 of them. Yeah, so good. And this actually, maybe it's happened or it's happening later. So they have
this guy.
It's not going to end well for him. It's over for him.
It's over for you.
Yeah. Man, now, and this is one thing I think that maybe we missed it or it's coming up. So they show that shot of Selena in the club, right, where she has like a wig and she's walking, the flashing lights. They also have that shot later of Bruce Wayne and he has his hood up and everything, and he has some paint, but he has his hood up. That is fun dynamic because that showed to me like, oh, again, I don't think she knows because she just like who's under the mask. She's not just like asking as like a physiological question. Like, I like what's gonna be good is I think she's gonna get in a situation where Batman can't help her, but because he cares about her or he's worrying about her, whatever it may be, he's gonna go in as Bruce undercover and he's gonna hide that he's not there. He's not gonna show that, hey, Bruce Wayne, billionaire is here to help you out, Selena Kyle. But I found it very interesting that he's in that same club as Bruce Wayne and not as Batman, and that's gonna be really fun.
That's really fun, yeah, because I think it was BVS when we had like Batflick, like. He's not crime fighting as Bruce Wayne, but he's still like doing some special agent activities, and it's always fun just seeing the man without all the armor and everything, like being like still that character. And I'm intrigued to see if that is like maybe Selena Kyle actually at that point knowing who he is, and then like she needs him like as a ground soldier without the suit. I can't imagine too many of those opportunities would arise, but it's still a fun dynamic, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this whole funeral, whatever scene with the car, and this stuff, which is gonna be great, like the water, the flooding. It looks like Riddler's gonna be fucking some stuff up, and it looks very 0 year-ish. There's a comic book that has to do with Riddler and doing some stuff. So
all of those like sky shots, we just went through a bunch of them there, but it like. Oh yeah, like just the aerial shots. They're so beautiful. Mostly explosions, but still they're.
Kirklin, beautiful. Look at them. Yeah. There's gonna be.
I just love seeing Pattinson look all dour.
I know. You get 2.5 hours of it, and there he is jumping off, and
she calls him vengeance there.
Yeah. Oh, when she says vengeance, let's get into some trouble. Oh my god, that is like.
So yeah, this is definitely it looks like the venue where we saw Riddler with the sniper or whatnot.
Yeah. Shot Selena head down and stuff, but no, great shot, smoke. The Batman March exclusive, only in theaters, and so it's looking great.
Spider-Man No Way Home final fight spoilers.
Spoiler. Oh, get that out of there!
Fucking
We're gonna get copyrighted. Yeah. So we had 2 questions. Great trailer. I have nothing else to say other than again, everything's looking good. Now I will say I'm not with everybody. Spoilers too much. I will say. They don't need another one. If they do another one, I don't actually know if we'd cover, but I think that's the right amount. I think that's a good final trailer because I think it does give a bit more of plot, but I think for people that aren't like us, that aren't following us time, to show that to the GA, being okay, it's new Batman, Catwoman, Riddler, Batman. Okay, but this is what the story is about. And the other ones have been very secretive, where this does show a bit more plot, but I think you need that for also when you got to promote a movie, so.
No, exactly. I agree with you. I think it's the perfect final trailer.
So let me just get the 2 questions here. So Maddie asked, assuming theaters are open at full capacity, how do you think the Batman will do at the box office compared to No Way Home? That's very difficult because I know that's the conversation now, right? Especially because No Way Home is the king. I don't know if that is as far as the Batman TV spot number 53. Oh, I can't wait. We'll review them all. No, we don't talk about TV spots, but it's tough because I think No Way Home goes to a lot more people, a lot more families. It's also Holland's like 6th time in the character, and it was also bringing classic people back. Now, if you were to ask me, and this is not happening, we've talked about Joker rumors before, but let's say this trailer had Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and it's like, shit, this is a part of it. When you get that connective tissue, that's where I feel like you would build more of the hype. I think this is going to do well. To me, the bar, so like what we've had, like the highest opening so far have been like Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals, all around like a 60 to 70, right? And then the highest after that was Venom with 90, and then higher than that was Spider-Man with 256. I'm not expecting Spider-Man numbers because I think that hype of another Spider-Man, returning characters, it built up. I think for me, the goal and comparable is for me, as long as theaters are, you know, who knows what variants are around that time and what's going on, God Christ, but I swear, if this movie gets delayed again, my bone is gonna break. Like every bone in my bone, I'll just like sit there. But I think to me, what is comparable is I would like to see it beat Venom at like the 90 million. I think like 100 million would be good because at the end of the day, this is still the first time passing's Batman. I think the sequels will be bigger and bigger, but also this does look like it's gonna be a bit more closed off. Like it's not a movie that I think a lot of fans will. Around Christmas time, let's all get the family together to go see No Way Home. I don't think this movie has that, which I'm glad it doesn't, but it doesn't have that same amount of potentiality as far as bringing people in. So I think that for me, the bar is like beating Venom. I think that would be a good bar to set as like, I think it should be able to, because yes, it's Pattinson's first time, but beating, like getting to 100 million, I think that is a nice bar to set.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's in an interesting range. It's tough to compare it to No Way Home just because that was such a movie going experience in my eyes, and you can make the argument Batman is as well, but I feel like just I'm not getting hit with nostalgia, you know, seeing these Batman trailers. Even though I didn't see Tobey. No, yeah, it's something new, which is something great in and of itself, arguably even better. But I think it's interesting because with Spider-Man, like, what's the best way to explain that? I feel like it's just so much more family friendly and oriented. Like you could go with your kids and see this, whereas like we were looking at a scene saying this is straight out of a horror movie. Like this movie looks so much more mature. I'm not sure what the rating is actually. You probably know.
Well,
14A, most likely.
I think it will be. I think I don't know if it was rumors because I know for why I said I thought it could be R. I know if there was rumors of it was R. It looks like it. You could make a case it could be R, but I think it will for sure be 13. I think they'll get it down to that because they want it at least open and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think like talking about kids, like here's the thing, like yeah, I took Gwen to some of the Marvel movies. I took her to Spider-Man. I won't be taking her to this, not because like okay, yeah, I wouldn't because it does look a little bit more mature, but this is a case I've made with The Dark Knight and then even BVS, where Batman as a character a lot of the time is a lot more dialogue heavy and a lot more just serious. And that's where it's like, for me, I never took a slight for BVS as like, don't take it as an offense. I just looked at BVS and I know some people go, oh, my kid loves it. That's great. The majority of people, I feel like you put that movie in front of kids, they're going to get bored. Where you could put No Way Home and because it's flashy and moves quick enough, they're going to love it. And I feel like same with The Dark Knight. I would feel lots of people. I remember when I saw it with my sister when she was a lot younger first time, she fell asleep. She fell asleep because it's not that type of comic book movie. You know, it's something else. That's Dark Knight. To me, the gem of comic book movies. My sister fell asleep. Like, can I fucking believe you? The Joker is breaking Harvey Dent out of prison and here you are sleeping. But like, that's where this movie I think will be like that, where it's not going to be like a, you know, oh, the big action. Like it will be, but in a different sense where it's not like, oh, Tom Holland and Tobey making jokes with each other. This is so funny. This is going to be like a procedural of like, okay, what is this mystery? You know, it's going to be a crime drama or a crime thriller.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like I know a lot of people that maybe they're not big in comic book movies, MCU, they're not really caught up, but like they still went out of their way to go see Spider-Man. They yes. really quite enjoyed it. I think Batman has that over the MCU movies that you don't have to be caught up in anything. Like this is a movie that really stands on its own. And I've also heard a lot of people that they're not even Batman or comic book fans, but they just either they love Robert Pattinson or they just saw the trailer and thought it looked so new and fresh, and like all those reasons make it interesting when you try and predict what it's gonna do numbers wise. Because I think it's in an interesting category in that sense.
Well, I honestly do think the Patterson thing helps because enough people that were like, "Oh, this sucks." Like, I think him in the role, people have like they're excited to see it. They're excited to see it because they're gonna love it, or they're excited to see him bomb. I think people are pretty much over the like. I think if there's anybody in the internet in the world that's still doing like, "Oh, Patterson's not right for Batman," I don't think they're a Batman fan.
They haven't seen a trailer yet.
yeah, exactly. They haven't seen a trailer. And I think the thing that does help it, there's two things. When I was talking about earlier with Spider-Man No Way Home, how like the waitress was like, "Oh, my friend's seen it." Batman, every time, it's not just my Twitter tweet, but Facebook, that is even more than, again, it's not going to be beating No Way Home, but from that first show to now, I just see like a certain level of hype that I don't with some other movies. You know, I feel like, again, my dad who had completely checked out of comic book movies, even when I told him about things like, he got me into comic books, but he was just kind of done with them. When that first show of Batman came out, he's like, "Oh man, this actually looks really good." And there's a lot of people like that. Even Liam, whose heart is stone, is like, "You know what, I'll be seeing the Batman because this looks great." So that's where it's like, I feel like this will hit a lot of people that way. And my last point for what will help it is, so it's coming out in March, right? Hopefully things get a little better. This Omicron goes down. From some of the biggest movies, you have Scream, you got Morbius, you got 355, you got Jackass, you got Uncharted, and that's really about something called Moonfall. Those are like the biggest movies in January, the next 2 months. It's going to be primed to be like that first mega big movie of next year. You know, it's going to get that kind of red carpet feel like, okay, yeah, Morbius is there, but Morbius could fall flat. Scream has an audience. Sure, Jackass has an audience, you know, but they don't have like that wide appeal, like a huge headline or comic book action, whatever franchise movie, like a Star Wars. That's what Batman is. And the fact that in the first 2 months there's not really anything out, I think that helps it. Because a lot of people be like, "Oh, I'm just going to wait till the Batman's out." That's all. Like, if they risked, you know, if they felt uncomfortable and they saw Spider-Man, I could see them be like, "I'm not going to see another movie till Batman's out, and then I'm good." You know? And I think, actually, it's a good idea that Doctor Strange moved to May instead of March. Because if you have people that had to pick, it's like, well, they don't have to pick now. They could wait. So
it's interesting, too, just like for the demographic of who would want to see this. I feel like Batman, and specifically this version, it kind of transcends like again, the demographic that would be interested in those types of movies. Like, you don't have to be a comic book fan because it's grounded enough.
Yes.
It's got the mystery thriller type sense to it. And even if you weren't really into those types of movies, hey, you're getting a Batman movie if you're a comic book fan. So it's a really interesting middle ground there. You know, if you don't care about movies, thriller, comic books, you got really handsome leads with Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
You got Zoe Kravitz, who's just looking great. So Paul Dano. Hey, he's handsome as well. We haven't seen his face yet.
He's not gonna be handsome in this movie. I'm telling you.
Zipper mouth.
Zipper mouth.
It's so funny thinking back to like the first time when we were seeing the images, and like I was kind of put off originally, honestly, and now that I see it like done well in the trailers, I'm completely saying I was wrong.
So this is our last topic because Santi asked this. So as I've forgot to pimp out, if you're a patron, every time we do a newscast, we try to put out topics there and you ask questions about them or send us anything else. So a big thing to patrons. She said, going off Maddie's question, how about compared to previous DC and specifically Batman films? So right here, I have all the Batman movies ranked by their highest and lowest opening weekends. Now, we won't go over every one. It's just so funny. The lowest is Batman 89 with 42 million, but because that's times, right?
Times,
like everything like
inflation.
That. So like I'm going to go up to number 5, which is the more current era. So Batman Begins was 72 million. After that, at number 4 was, I guess this counts, Justice League at 93. I'm not really counting that, but let's skip that. So Batman Begins, 72 million. The Dark Knight, 158 million. The Dark Knight Rises, 160 million. And it's just so funny, the narrative. But then BVS, 181 million.
Holy shit.
Which is just so funny because like BVS is looked as kind of like a disappointment, even though it's technically the biggest Batman opening of all time. But this is where, not to get in this fucking debate, I don't care, but this is where it shows BVS, biggest opening that has Batman in it, right? Didn't hit $1 billion. Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight did. That made 20 million less than opening weekend. That shows, again, I hate doing this because there's going to be some, but that shows whether it's mainstream or quality, there was enough people that did not like BVS that think, I don't need to go see this again. Or they didn't recommend it to their friends, right? And I always say, people bring this up like, oh, it's changed, it's different times. I don't care. For me, the fact that Warner Brothers did the first ever movie with Batman and Superman and didn't hit $1 billion will always be embarrassing to me. Always. The fact that Aquaman made $1 billion. Joker made $1 billion, which was rated R. BVS could not even make $1 billion. And I like BVS, but it shows you something like how people felt about that era, right? And I understand why Warner Brothers did get scared around that time. Now,
we're getting some dislikes now on our podcast and bad reviews incoming.
The good thing is YouTube doesn't let people show dislikes anymore. So we can see them, but they don't let the public show. So we don't even know. No, everyone just liked it. But the thing is, again, I don't think they need to do the fucking Joss Whedon cut and everything. Whole mishandled. But I think out of those ones, like I said, I think a realistic approach to me is 100 million, because Batman Begins is 72 million. That was coming off Batman and Robin. That was coming off when the franchise was dead as it had ever been.
Yeah,
Batman was a joke. It was coming off, Freeze. You had cartoon tunes and shows and stuff, but it was the lowest there. I think 100 million, because 150 million with Dark Knight, that to me was, okay, you had Batman Begins, which people liked, and then, you're introducing the Joker, and then also had this is going to be Heath Ledger's last film, right? It had a lot of things going towards it that I think made sense. Like, you look at 72 million to 158 million, that's a huge jump from Batman Begins to this. That's why, to me, I think this film feels like it has more hypes than Batman Begin did, in my opinion. Of I was smaller back then, but I just feel like I saw trailers for it, but I hear more people talk about the Batman than I saw Batman Begins. I think Begins was more like people are like, oh, there's another Batman I'll see, and then when they saw it, oh, this is great. I can't wait for more. Where this, I think, has a lot more urgency. So that's my prediction. Like I said, 100 million. I think it will come at least. I don't see it getting to 158 million Dark Knight numbers, but maybe I'm wrong. Kirklin, you think I'm wrong there?
I don't think you're wrong. I think I'll be different from you just to be that guy. I was thinking about going Prices Right here and just going 101 be that guy. Bob. No, but yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit more optimistic. I think 115 is what I would go with. I think we can hit that. I really want to be surprised, though, and I want it to be just completely surpassing your reaction. Not on the lower end, I don't want to be surprised. I want to be surprised on the higher sense. It blows my expectation or my prediction out of the water.
Comes in Matrix numbers, oh, no, what happened?
Oh, no. I'm in the theater. I'm the only one. I'm no!
People really don't like Rob Passon. But yeah. So yeah, we're in agreement that definitely beats that 72 million, and then the Venom one. I think that's in the pandemic era. Morbius, I really don't think Morbius is beating Venom. I don't think Scream will. I don't think Jackass will. So I think if you could be the number second biggest opening the pandemic, pretty impressive in my opinion. I think it will get there. I think unless it just gets scathing reviews, but I really don't. I don't see that. I just, from the quality of this, it's just, I don't know. I think enough people are excited. I think, again, people, I've had so much Batman, but it's almost been 10 years since we had a solo Batman movie. It came out in 2012, right? So it's almost 10 years. It's crazy because he's in so much other media, but we'll see. It's going to be fun. I'm hoping we're the same thing as Spider-Man, that we come in here, and it's just, again, this is the other thing where I think that there's been this conversation of, so Matrix didn't do well and West Side Story, but then there's some snotty people well, people can't blame the pandemic because look at Spider-Man and it had the biggest opening second of all time. People are definitely seeing movies. No, I think that the pandemic has showed that whether it's just you feel safe going to movies or whatever your choice is, I think the pandemic has showed what people are really going to go see. Is that a good thing? I'm not saying I don't want to get in that argument. It's a good thing for me because I like these movies, but the whole cinemas, hey, we love Last Night in Soho, one of our favorite movies, did not do well. People didn't see it. It went on VOD fucking 2 weeks later, which was not a good sign, right? But that's where, unfortunately, I don't like that. I would love to Soho just broke off and just did gangbusters. But I think the pandemic is showing what people are willing to go out there for. If they feel unsafe, they're going to go to those bigger ones. And that's where, when we talked about Tobey and Andrew and IP later, those are people that are proven, an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie will do better than probably 60% of the other movies in the year, even if it doesn't do Holland numbers. And that's where, same thing of this, where I think people will sit back and wait to next time to go see a movie will be the Batman. And I think it has that going for it because the pandemic is showing that shows what the consumer wants, whether it's Spider-Man,
Absolutely.
whether it's Venom, whether it's not musicals, which they got to retire, so.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, we did it. So this is your last newscast for the year, Kirklin Patzer,
Crazy feeling. Thanks for having me. Thanks for
of course.
hanging out. I
Thanks
was
for doing that, I'm
noticing you were constantly just getting hot, getting cold. You're on and off. Katy
Yeah.
Perry over here.
I should have got a T-shirt because like that would have helped out, but it was just like this is very warm, so I take off them in a tank top. Like so yeah, I should have went a T-shirt route. But the problem is like, if I thought this room would be a lot more colder because how freezing it is outside, but it's not. Like it's cold, but it's not like freezing cold. I don't have any heat on here, so yeah, I'll prepare better for boba. So hopefully that works out for me. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we got Boba Fett coming out. Me and Tay are going to do one other newscast to end off the year. And and then we'll be back next 2 weeks. I'm very excited because we're going to do our annual. We didn't do them last year, so not annual, but our like most anticipated movies and video games, which I always love those going down the list and
Always.
seeing what's going on. I got massive hiccups, so we're going to end this cast right now. Promise you, it'll not be boring.
Best year yet.
Best year yet.